Chapter 724. Duan Wuya. The crowd was sweating profusely. They had come to see the wedding of the ruler of Shuiyu, Lin Feng. But now they were watching a terrifying battle between cultivators of the Tianqi layer. They had never seen cultivators of the Tianqi layer before. With one punch, those cultivators could make the entire sky change. Besides, their energies contained intent and could kill millions of ordinary people. There were terrifying, deadly energies rolling around in the palace. The myriad of people who were on the rock's back got off and penetrated into the palaces. That battle would determine the future of Shuiyu. Lin Feng, who had turned into a demon before, rose up in the air and remained emotionless. His evil energies were rolling around. Nobody knew what he was thinking. The cultivators of the Tianqi layer were becoming more aggressive. Their energies were all insanely rolling in the air. Some silhouettes came out from the imperial palace. Those people were releasing warlord energies. The armored horses flew away, killed instantly as they had been unable to resist. Yun Feiyang was still on the back of the rock. He was speechless when he saw those people. How strong! They were cultivators of the Tianqi layer as well. How come there were so many cultivators of the Tianqi layer in the imperial palace? Where were those cultivators of the Tianqi layer from? Test. Boom boom boom. A silhouette was attacked and flew away. Those brutal and violent energies were unstoppable. An extremely strong cultivator raised his head and looked at the rock in an indifferent way. That person smiled coldly and continued moving forwards. He was leaving the palace and was followed by some other people. They came out of the palace and saw the battles in the sky. They were smiling indifferently. They jumped and rose up in the air while releasing some terrifying energies. People's hearts started pounding faster and faster again. Several more cultivators of the Tianqi layer. That was insane. What was going on in Shuiyu? How come there were so many cultivators of the Tianqi layer? Was it because of the great competition of Shuiyu? Was everything happening because Lin Feng had finished first at the great competition of Shuiyu? Who are those people? Wondered all the people who were fighting in the sky. They didn't know if those people were their friends or their enemies. We want to kill Lin Feng, said one person indifferently. People from Shengong started shivering as some terrifying energies crashed onto their bodies. The people of Shengong could hardly resist after those terrifying cultivators joined the battle. Some people from Shengong were projected backwards as blood splashed out of their mouths. A Shengong cultivator of the Tianqi layer lowered his head and saw dragon claws on his chest. A disgusting wound had appeared and blood was gushing out of it. He couldn't manage to heal it with his pure qi. People from the East Sea Dragon Palace. The eyes of the Shengong people were bloodshot. They were already fighting against the cultivators from the Jade Heaven Imperial family. And suddenly, some strong cultivators from the East Sea Dragon Palace had appeared too. Shengong couldn't stop them. Precisely, said the leader of the group of people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. He was wearing a dragon chong pao and looked cold. Lin Feng refused to join Shengong. He is not a member of Shengong. Therefore, we will kill him now, so you should leave. We, people of the East Sea Dragon Palace, are not the enemies of Shengong, said the leader coldly. The cultivators of Shengong couldn't be fooled though. They clearly knew that those people didn't want Lin Feng to penetrate into the mysterious world. They were trying to use emotions to change their minds. I would have never thought that so many strong cultivators would show up to kill Lin Feng. I am very surprised, said a member of Shengong, stupefied. No matter what, Lin Feng is doomed. Shengong cannot protect him anymore. If you don't leave, don't blame the people from the East Sea Dragon Palace for being rude, said the leader in the dragon robe. He then looked at the people from Jade Heaven and said, I think that the Jade Heaven Imperial family shares the same opinion. Of course, said someone else on his side. If people from Shengong left, Lin Feng was definitely going to die. They had come to Shuiyu for two reasons. The first one was Duan Wu Dao and the second one was to kill Lin Feng. All the members of Shengong were upset. Could they abandon Lin Feng? However, they were facing people from Jade Heaven and from the East Sea Dragon Palace. If they didn't give up, what could they do? They couldn't protect Lin Feng. It was a dead end for everybody. Of course, they really didn't want Lin Feng to die. It would be one less genius to enter the mysterious world. They were not resigned to leave and give up. However, regardless of everything, they couldn't protect him. The people from Shengong and Jade Heaven were releasing monstrous energies which enveloped the entire atmosphere. People from Shengong were all anxious and glancing at each other. They didn't feel like giving up, but what could they do? If they continued fighting, they might all die. Besides, they wouldn't be able to protect Linfeng. It seemed worthless to keep fighting. A strong cultivator of Shengong turned around and looked at Linfeng. I cannot help you. If you had accepted to join Shengong, this might not have happened. That person looked grieved. Linfeng was going to die. Let's go, said a cultivator from Shengong. His clothes fluttered in the wind and whistling sounds spread in the air. The crowd was worried about Linfeng. It was over for him. The strong cultivators were leaving, so Linfeng was doomed. Even with his demon form, Linfeng couldn't protect himself. The cultivators of the East Sea Dragon Palace looked at Linfeng coldly. One of them said in an indifferent way, "The Purple Dragon King gave you a chance. He proposed you to join us and gave you time to think, but you refused. You despised him, so this is the consequence. Didn't you know that this would happen?" Linfeng looked emotionless. He obviously knew that there would be consequences. Those strong cultivators had hidden their cruel and abominable nature. Just like Duan Wu Dao. Those people were evil and wanted to kill him. Yu Menghe and the others looked hopeless. Could they break free from such a situation? Surprisingly, so many people wanted to kill Linfeng. People with incredible natural abilities could hardly survive if they weren't strong enough to protect themselves. So many people were jealous and envied them. Linfeng understood that principle. The East Sea Dragon Palace people didn't hurry to kill Linfeng. They were looking at the people from Jade Heaven and Duanren Huang. Today, we people from the East Sea Dragon Palace came to Shuiyu with another goal. The son of the king of Shuiyu, the second prince Duan Wuya, is now a member of the East Sea Dragon Palace. We have come here to declare that Duan Wu Dao is not the crown prince anymore. Duan Wuya, our new disciple, must become the crown prince. They wanted Duan Wuya to replace Duan Wu Dao? Everybody was absolutely stunned when they heard that. What a surprise! Duan Wu Dao and Duanren Huang's faces also changed drastically. The people from the Jade Heaven Imperial family were also astonished but remained cold. That came down to saying that Duan Wu Dao couldn't compete with Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya! Everybody was looking at Duan Wuya suddenly. The warm and gentle second prince. He was smiling in an indifferent way. He didn't look surprised at all. He looked calm and serene, as if everything was happening how he had predicted. He had planned everything, the situation was perfectly under his control, and he hadn't allowed luck to play any role in this story. The defeat in Duanren City, the massacre of the troops, the war against Mou, Duan Xianye's kidnapping and so on. All of those things had nothing to do with Duan Wu Dao. Now the gathering of the strong cultivators of Shengong, Jade Heaven and the East Sea Dragon Palace. Everything had been planned by Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya refused to be a mere second prince. Wasn't he as strong and capable as Duan Wu Dao? He was going to prove to everyone that he is even stronger. Chapter 725. Unsheathing the evil swords. Duanren Huang was speechless, looking at the people from the East Sea Dragon Palace. He frowned and said, "The Crown Prince Duan Wu Dao is a peerless cultivator. He is extremely strong. Duan Wuya is a ridiculous cultivator. How could he compete with Duan Wu Dao? Reigning over Shuiyu is not a game. Unless Duan Wu Dao resigns, Duan Wuya will never be at the peak of Shuiyu and will never manage to carry out a coup d'état." The strong cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace looked at Duanren Huang indifferently and asked, "Who is the king of Shuiyu?" He then turned to Duan Wuya, smiled and said, "Wuya, Duanren Huang wants to see how strong you are. Show him." "All right," said Duan Wuya, nodding. Duan Wu Dao slowly walked forwards and released a terrifying energy. It was bestial and ice-cold. His entire body was surrounded by evil moon qi. The dark clouds in the sky started rolling insanely. A vortex appeared above Duan Wuya. That vortex was getting deeper. The qi in that vortex was also terrifying. Duan Wuya was precisely under that vortex. "On the day of the great sun and moon, my evil moon skill works even better." "Swallow," said Duan Wuya. His qi was becoming more terrifying. It contained an infinite amount of evil qi. High up in the sky was a terrifying vortex, and the dark clouds were being swallowed by that vortex. Duan Wuya was swallowing the strength of the great moon. What kind of skill was that? Duan Wuya's energies were becoming stronger. Many people were astonished. Duan Wuya had been hiding many things. Arf! The crowd heard Duan Wuya roar aggressively. His spirit then appeared. It was a terrifying and hideous evil spirit. Ah! Surprisingly, you dared make me come out. I will tear your body apart, said that spirit aggressively. But Duan Wuya was still smiling coldly, which surprised the spirit. What was Duan Wuya thinking? The evil spirit raised his head confused. Great Moon Day bastard, what do you want to do? Said the spirit in an extremely aggressive manner. It seemed scared. That was the spirit of a cultivator of the Tianqi layer which Duan Wuya had sealed in Celestial River. I didn't use you for such a long time. You are going to die and become my cauldron, said Duan Wuya while smiling coldly. He then shouted furiously, swallow. A terrifying gravitational force then swallowed that spirit as it moved into his mouth. That spirit was roaring violently, but the vortex above Duan Wuya kept absorbing it into Duan Wuya's mouth. Bastard! The Tiansha sect will never let you off, shouted the spirit one last time. The crowd watched as Duan Wuya absorbed the spirit. Duan Wuya's body started shaking violently. His qi suddenly increased and he reached the very top of the 9th Xianqi layer. He looked particularly ferocious at that moment. The cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace smiled when he saw that. He was very pleased with Duan Wuya. What cruel methods! Reaching that level wasn't easy. The East Sea Dragon Palace just needed to help him become a little bit stronger, and he would become even stronger than Duan Wu Dao. Even though Duan Wuya was evil, he was somebody with remarkable abilities. He could obtain what he wanted. He was very determined and patient. Some great things could happen if he managed to penetrate into the mysterious world. The crowd was staring at Duan Wuya, the second prince who had always appeared as a benevolent, kind-hearted and warm person. But now he looked extremely evil. He was a master manipulator. People couldn't recognize this Duan Wuya anymore. They would have never thought that he could be so terrifying. The cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace looked at Duan Renhuang and said indifferently, now dismiss Duan Wu Dao from his function and confer Duan Wuya the title of Crown Prince. Or are you still going to refuse? Of course Duan Wu Dao is older. He should be the Crown Prince, said Duan Renhuang coldly. You want to die? Shouted the cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace. He was enraged. He jumped forwards and grabbed Duan Renhuang's neck. His hand looked like a dragon claw. He had remarkable strength. The chant of the dragons started resonating in the air. Duan Renhuang was caught off guard as he used his warlord punches. Even though the warlord punch was extremely strong, it immediately vanished when it collided with the dragon claws. Roar! The dragon roared furiously and more dragon claws grabbed Duan Renhuang's chest. A bloody wound appeared. Duan Renhuang groaned with pain. Blood started gushing. How strong, sighed the crowd. Duan Renhuang had broken through to the Tianqi layer and was monstrously strong. In Xueyu he was an overlord, but in the continent of the 9 clouds, the East Sea Dragon Palace was a group of monstrously strong people. Their members could easily kill Duan Renhuang. Don't get involved in their national affairs. Don't you think that you people from the East Sea Dragon Palace are exaggerating? Said a cultivator of the Jade Heaven Imperial family. They were already fighting against Lei Meng, so they couldn't take care of the man in the dragon robe. They could only watch in silence. Who said that Duan Wuya had to be the second prince of Xueyu? Shouted the man in the dragon robe aggressively. The crowd remained silent. Those who were strong enough could say whatever they wanted. Since the beginning, Duan Wuya was supposed to become the crown prince. That is an offense for the East Sea Dragon Palace, said the man in the dragon robe. Duan Wu Dao was also pulling a long face. He hadn't thought that Duan Wuya would be the final winner. Now kill Lin Feng and his people, said that person looking at Lin Feng. Duan Wuya jumped towards Lin Feng with an evil smile on his face. Thank you for having killed so many people in MOU. You gave me lots of corpse qi to absorb, said Duan Wuya smiling at Lin Feng. You were there too? Lin Feng looked cold as his evil energies were still rolling around his body. I went there a short time after you left. The Dragon Palace gave me a Tian-level beast. Luckily the beast was faster than your rock, said Duan Wuya smiling. Lin Feng, I admit that you have remarkable natural abilities. I wouldn't have thought that you would be able to defeat my brother at the great competition of Xueyu. But now you will die as well as your family. They will all die. Concerning Shui Linglong, she belongs to the Dragon Palace now. They will all die? The crowd was shaking. Who could save all those people? The Jade Heaven Imperial Family, the EC Dragon Palace, the Deshu Clan, Duan Ren Huang, Duan Wu Dao, Duan Wuya, Yumo's teacher. Lin Feng glanced at them coldly. He still looked calm and serene, absolutely unperturbed. He just looked extremely evil. Even if I lose my soul and become a demon, I will destroy you. I will not only destroy you but I will annihilate you, said Lin Feng while transforming into a terrifying pitch-black demon. He started dancing in the atmosphere at the same rhythm as the clouds. The dark clouds were moving even faster at that moment as a terrifying evil hurricane invaded the atmosphere. A vortex appeared above Lin Feng. That vortex was even more terrifying than the one which had just appeared above Duan Wuya's head a moment before. The black clouds were emitting whistling sounds and were rolling chaotically. It seemed like some demons were going to come out from hell. Some terrifying and ice-cold evil energies were whistling in the air. The coldness was piercing to the bones. What is going on? The crowd looked at the sky. They were scared to death. Was something new going to happen? Those terrifying evil clouds seemed like they came from hell. How scary. Meng Qing, even if I have to become a demon, I will make them suffer for what they did, said Lin Feng in darkly. Some chants resonated in the atmosphere as if a demonic seal had been opened. From Lin Feng's back appeared a sword. It was a black sword. Huh. The crowd was surprised. A sword was coming out of Lin Feng's body. Boom, boom, boom. The atmosphere started vibrating violently. The dark clouds looked even more insane than before. They were turning into evil clouds. Some metallic sounds were spreading in the air. From Lin Feng's back appeared 2 swords, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and finally 9 swords. 9 black swords had emerged from Lin Feng's body. Boom, boom, boom. Those 9 swords dashed to the skies. The vault of heaven was emitting terrifying whistling sounds and the atmosphere was darker than what it had been up to that moment. The entire region was filled with a hellish darkness. Those 9 evil swords made people crouch down and even crawl. They had the impression that they were going to die of suffocation. People were collapsing. They couldn't breathe. They felt like they were aspirating. It seemed like their souls were being torn apart. However, everybody's eyes were wide open and their pupils were so wide and round that they seemed like they were going to explode. They had the impression that they were going to die. The evil energy in the atmosphere was terrifying. The cultivators of the Tianqi layer were all staring at that move and shaking. Those evil swords were terrifying. They didn't have such weapons. Those evil swords had their own lives and were incredibly evil, extremely evil. Those 9 evil swords were like 9 demons. Chapter 726. Killing Duanren Huang, the evil swords from the mountains of the 9 swords. Lin Feng was actually the one who had obtained them. Thought people from Shuiyu. Back then, the 9 sword mountains had been destroyed and had disappeared, changing the landscape of the entire region of the 9 Dragons mountain chain. The entire imperial city had been covered by the evil energies of those swords back then, but had suddenly disappeared. Nobody had guessed that Lin Feng was the one who had obtained them. However, Lin Feng was unable to control that terrifying evil qi. The cultivators of the Tianqi layer were astonished. Those evil swords were dangerous for them even. Kill him before he starts using the swords, said the cultivators of the Tianqi layer. They obviously knew that Lin Feng's swords were monstrous. They might have the chance to obtain them even. Their silhouettes all flickered and they threw themselves at Lin Feng. Lin Feng then shouted in an ice-cold way, "Come back." Some terrifying rumbling sounds spread in the air. The 9 evil swords turned into black beams of light and appeared in front of Lin Feng. The cultivators of the Tianqi layer attacked the 9 evil swords but didn't manage to make them move. They had just protected Lin Feng's body. 9 swords together, said Lin Feng. The 9 evil swords were roaring violently and emitting buzzing sounds. They immediately dashed to the skies. The entire atmosphere was pitch black as the sky seemed like it was going to collapse. Lin Feng stretched his hand out and grabbed a sword. A terrifying evil sword intent merged with the energies in his body, merging with his own sword intent. Lin Feng closed his eyes. This time he didn't resist and submitted himself to the swords. He even visualized those evil swords as his body turned entirely black. His mouth turned black, his eyes were entirely black, Not only his pupils, there was absolutely no white in his eyes anymore. Lin Feng was a demon that had submitted himself to the demonic energies. A terrifying demoniac qi was flowing in his body. Lin Feng opened his eyes and black beams of light shot out from his eyes, illuminating the atmosphere. Lin Feng looked like a murderer. He had submitted himself. He wanted to kill all the creatures of the world. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. The evil sword descended from the sky and some terrifying black lights descended from the sky, lacerating the atmosphere. The cultivators in front of Lin Feng started running away. Their silhouettes were flickering. Boom, boom, boom. The guards who were at the big gate of the imperial palace were instantly absorbed by the black lights. A gigantic black fissure appeared from the ground. Those swords seemed like they had just penetrated into the abysses of the world. How frightening, thought the crowd watching those evil lights. They were shaking from head to foot. They would die if that sword had touched them. Let's act together and kill him, shouted Duan Renhuang furiously. How could it happen? Duan Wuya had already surprised him. He was much stronger than what he had expected. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng had the evil swords. He had submitted himself to the demons. He looked like an evil spirit with his eyes filled with evil energies. It wasn't the Lin Feng they knew. This Lin Feng could destroy the world. Lin Feng slowly turned his head and looked at Duan Renhuang. His pitch-black eyes looked ice-cold. He was slowly fusing together with some demon. However, he still remembered that some people had to die no matter what. Arg! Kill! Shouted Lin Feng. He deployed the full strength of the evil swords. The sword he had been holding turned into 9 swords again. The 9 swords all moved towards Duan Renhuang suddenly. Boom, boom, boom. There was an earthquake. Duan Renhuang looked at the 9 pitch-black beams of light move towards him. Nobody paid attention to him or thought about helping him. All they thought about was moving away, as far away as possible from those 9 pitch-black lights. It was too late. Seal! Shouted Duan Renhuang. 8 sealed doors appeared at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 evil swords collided with the sealed doors, but the sealed doors couldn't block those evil swords at all. They continued moving towards Duan Renhuang. Warlord punch! Shouted Duan Renhuang furiously. A terrifying physical strength filled with sealed doors intent emerged. However, Duan Renhuang looked depressed. The pitch-black lights were still moving towards him. A voice spread in the air. Die! Thur! The evil swords were lacerating the entire atmosphere. Nothing could prevent them from moving forwards. The black lights twinkled. Duan Renhuang suddenly looked hopeless and desperate. The evil swords were moving towards his throat. No! Shouted Duan Renhuang. His pupils were wide open. Was he going to die? Duan Renhuang was a member of the imperial family of Shuiyu. How could he die? Everybody admired him for his strength. However, even if he wasn't resigned to die, the evil swords kept moving forwards. Then they pierced his throat. The crowd only saw jet-black beams of light and a head fall down to the ground. Duan Renhuang had been decapitated by the evil swords. Gulp! The crowd gulped down and their hearts were beating frantically. The strongest person of the imperial family of Shuiyu, a cultivator of the Tianqi layer, had been killed by the evil swords. Die! Shouted the strong cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace while throwing himself at Lin Feng. The chant of the dragons was resonating in the air. Some golden dragon claws appeared and moved towards Lin Feng's chest. It seemed like Lin Feng was about to be impaled. Lin Feng moved backwards, but those dragon claws were extremely fast. He couldn't dodge them. Boom! The dragon claws crashed onto Lin Feng's body and his skin was torn apart. Bloody flesh appeared. However, Lin Feng still looked expressionless. 3 huge demons appeared. There were 8 hands that grabbed the dragon claws. Huh! The cultivator in the dragon robe was astonished. He could sense the terrifyingly sharp evil energies. How insane! Lin Feng had turned into an insanely powerful demon. Fuck off! His dragon claws got pushed backwards. Lin Feng moved backwards as a furious roar resonated in the air. A dragon appeared and it bared fangs and flashed its claws. It launched out at the evil swords with incredible speed. Boom boom! The evil swords and the dragon collided. The dragon then disappeared without leaving trace. The cultivator in the dragon robe shivered. He wanted to dodge and move away, but it seemed too late. For demons were moving towards him and had grabbed him. He was constricted. "Fuck off!" shouted the cultivator in the dragon robe. The chant of the dragon spread in the air again, creating a hurricane. The 4 demons were projected backwards. However, the evil swords became even more dazzling. The cultivator in the dragon robe was frightened. He wanted to move back, but some sound spread in the air and blood splashed about. His arms had been cut off. Roar! The evil swords lacerated his body. He was going insane. His arm had been lacerated. However, he had no time to heal his wound as more rumbling sounds spread in the air. The evil swords were whistling in the air. The entire atmosphere was filled with their evil energies. "Die!" shouted someone behind the evil sword lights. The cultivator in the dragon robe was in a frenzy. Another dragon appeared but was immediately lacerated again. While he was moving aside to dodge, the black sword lights were approaching. His body was soaked with cold sweat. Lin Feng possessed incredible natural abilities. Even though he had only broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer, and with his level 5 sword intent, he could control those terrifying evil swords. He could turn into a demon and merge with them. He was extremely dangerous with that new form. The cultivator in the dragon robe moved back, turned his head and saw Lin Feng jump towards him. There were evil black clouds circling Lin Feng's body. He was holding an evil sword. Lin Feng wasn't thinking about anything else but kill. "We cannot kill him today, let's go," shouted the cultivator in the dragon robe. He had lost an arm, and because of the evil swords they couldn't kill Lin Feng. They had no choice but to escape. Besides, Lin Feng had turned into a demon and his heart was filled with murderous intentions. Maybe he would die or turn into the slaves of those evil swords. He would never be able to go to the mysterious world in such a state. He started flying away as fast as he could, catching Duan Wuya on the way, and ran off into the distance. Lin Feng could die alone. He was going to turn into a slave of the evil spirit of those swords, so it was worthless to risk one's life to kill him. Someone fell down from the sky. It was the strong cultivator of the Jade Heaven Imperial family. He was astonished when saw the man in the dragon robe. Lin Feng had turned into an authentic demon. The people of the East Sea Dragon Palace had to escape. They couldn't fight against Lin Feng anymore. Chapter 727. The terrifying Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed as he saw all those people escaping. His evil swords rose up in the air and the evil energies kept emitting whistling sounds. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. Terrifying pitch-black beams of light descended from the sky. Those black lights could reach people over huge distances. A gigantic crevice appeared in the ground again. "Let's stop him together," said the man in the dragon robes. That sword was terrifying and its chi was unavoidable. It was omnipresent. Roar! A few terrifying dragons appeared around the cultivator in the dragon robe. They dashed to the skies and their claws all attacked the evil swords. Thurr! Way up in the sky the dragons were colliding with the pitch-black lights. Some of those black lights had even disappeared. Aha! A cultivator of the Tianqi layer was touched by one of those evil lights beams though, and he died suddenly. The jet-black beams of light hadn't entirely disappeared. There were still some left. "Let's go," said the cultivator in the dragon robe. He didn't care about anything else, he just wanted to escape. He started running at full speed again. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with killer energies. The dark clouds were still rolling in the sky. He turned around and looked at the others, especially at one cultivator from Jade Heaven and at Yumo's teacher, as well as Duan Wu Dao and their allies. "Oh no," said the cultivator from the Jade Heaven Imperial family. In a flash he had arrived next to Duan Wu Dao. He had to bring Duan Wu Dao back with him no matter what. Duan Wu Dao had to penetrate into the mysterious world of the Jade Heaven Imperial family. He couldn't die. With such amazing natural abilities, Duan Wu Dao would become one of their best cultivators. However, Lin Feng was still holding the evil sword and shot out towards Duan Wu Dao. His evil sword was filled with an incredible sword intent. "Let's leave," shouted the cultivator of the Jade Heaven Imperial family furiously. He released some terrifying chi, joined his hands and a gigantic imperial hand chi appeared. Boom! The black light beam and the hand collided, and then they disappeared together. The cultivator of the Jade Heaven Imperial family didn't stop as he grabbed Duanwu Dao and continued escaping. De Shukong and Yumo's teacher turned their heads around and attacked Lin Feng at the same time. They were trying to block Lin Feng. Some pitch-black lights were emerging out of Lin Feng's eyes again. He was staring at those two people, making their hearts palpitate. It seemed like a demon was strangling them. Idiot! The two of them were seemingly just realizing that Lin Feng was stronger than them. They surprisingly wanted to help the people from Jade Heaven but had forgotten to care for themselves. They moved aside in two different directions. They were panicking and hoping that Lin Feng wasn't going to choose them. Lin Feng turned around and jumped forwards towards Yumo's teacher. He decided to chase him. Yumo's teacher looked frightened. He was scared. He had never thought that Lin Feng would chase him. He had thought that he would be the one chasing and killing Lin Feng. Boom boom boom. Yumo's teacher sensed the pitch-black lights approaching him. He was shaking from head to foot. Those black beams of light were descending from the sky. Yumo's teacher cried out in alarm, but he couldn't escape them as they crashed onto his body. He had died. Another cultivator of the Tianqi layer had just died. All those strong cultivators had incredible natural abilities and possessed the power to destroy Xueyu in the blink of an eye. They could easily exterminate the cultivators of the Tianqi layer from Xueyu. But at that moment, their lives were being threatened. Lin Feng immediately moved towards De Shukong. De Shukong was still running away, but he wasn't very far. Cultivators of the Tianqi layer were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Lin Feng looked at that silhouette coldly. He knew that he couldn't chase him. He wasn't fast enough. Lin Feng closed his eyes. He made the evil swords fuse together with his heart even further. And then he shouted furiously, "Die!" A terrifying roaring sound spread in the air. The dark clouds were rolling. The sword in Lin Feng's hand turned into a pitch-black beam of light again and shot towards De Shukong in the horizon. The evil sword was filled with vitality and intent. It was extremely fast. Ah! The terrifying sound of the sword moved far away in the distance. Then the crowd saw the black light swallow the silhouette. The evil sword killed De Shukong. De Shukong had died too. Boom boom boom. The evil clouds were emitting rumbling sounds. The evil sword moved back to Lin Feng and landed in his hand again. Lin Feng was standing in the air and looked like a real death god. There was only death in Lin Feng's eyes. He was a killer. He was filled with infinite murderous intentions and coldness. Nobody could get close to him without dying. Little Feng. Lin Feng. Yu Menghe and Lin Hai were astonished and staring at their son. Lin Feng turned his head around and looked at them, but in his eyes, there was only coldness and evilness. He wasn't Lin Feng anymore. He was a demon. He couldn't recognize them. Lin Feng moved his eyelids and looked somewhere else. He landed on the ground and looked at the king of Xueyu. The cultivator of the East Sea Dragon Palace wanted Duanwuya to come with him. Duanwuya didn't care about the king. The king held no value. When facing danger, he couldn't abandon him. Lin Feng had become a demon and everybody was terrified. They were suffocating. At the moment when I was about to win against Duan Renhuang, something else happened. I had been preparing that for such a long time. But that's life, sighed the king of Xueyu while shaking his head. I wouldn't have thought that you would be able to control the evil swords and then turn into a demon. From now on, I wonder how many people will die by your hands. The king slowly closed his eyes. He couldn't escape and he couldn't fight against Lin Feng. He couldn't do anything, so he was hopeless. Lin Feng's eyes were still ice cold. Evil lights were twinkling in his eyes, filled with murder. His sword descended from the sky and killed the king of Xueyu. The king of Xueyu had always been under Duan Renhuang's control. He had died. Then Duanwu Dao and Duanwu Ye had escaped with extremely powerful and influential groups. The elite troops of Xueyu, the Imperial Snow Dragon Guards, had also died. Then Yun Fei Yang had invaded the palace of Xueyu. It seemed like Xueyu was lost. From that day on, Xueyu would belong to Lin Feng. Of course, Lin Feng had turned into a demon and that was a big problem. Lin Feng, said a voice at that moment. Lin Feng raised his head and saw someone in the sky. It was Lei Meng. You are still alive. If you manage to come back to your normal self, don't forget about the appointment in Shenggong. Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences, said Lei Meng coldly, looking at Lin Feng's pitch-black pupils. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with murder. He moved forwards and rose up in the air. Lei Meng was astonished. Then Lin Feng raised his evil sword and a terrifying black beam of light shot out towards Lei Meng. "What are you doing? How dare you?" shouted Lei Meng furiously. A terrifying thunder emerged out of Lei Meng's body and moved towards the evil sword. But Lin Feng had really turned into a demon and couldn't control anything. There was nothing impossible or forbidden to him. He would dare anything, he just wanted to kill people. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. He was covered by evil energies from head to foot. His sword descended from the sky once again. His terrifying evil energies made Lei Meng feel more awake than ever before. Lin Feng had already become a demon and nothing couldn't prevent him from killing. "You're insane!" shouted Lei Meng. His terrifying thunders kept bombarding the evil sword. He then turned around and tried to escape. Who could fight against an insane demon? Lin Feng's sword moved towards Lei Meng again. Purple thunders were roaring in the atmosphere and Lei Meng continued flying faster and faster. In the distance, two people suddenly appeared riding ferocious wild beasts. There was a boy and girl and they were frightened. What had happened? How come? "Lin Feng! Lin Feng!" Those two people shouted Lin Feng's name at the same time. They had heard that it was Lin Feng's wedding day and had rushed over to Shuiyu from Dragon Mountain. It was Junimoshi and Tang Yuyu. However, all they could see was that Lin Feng had turned into a demon. Chapter 728. He cannot turn into a demon. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Junimoshi and Tang Yuyu. His eyes were cold. He didn't look like the handsome and outstanding young man they knew. Lin Feng's eyes were entirely black, filled with murder and evilness. Lin Feng jumped towards Tang Yuyu and Junimoshi. His evil sword energy were rolling in the atmosphere. "Oh no! Lin Feng will kill them," thought some people. They were worried for Junimoshi and Tang Yuyu. They were Lin Feng's friends. The boy looked outstanding, handsome and delicate. His chi was a pure chi of righteousness. The girl looked elegant and beautiful. It would be a pity if Lin Feng killed them with his evil sword. Junimoshi frowned and found out that Lin Feng was dangerous at that moment. His evil energy was terrifying. It seemed like he wanted to kill all living creatures. Junimoshi made his pure chi of righteousness roll in his body, but didn't release it. Tang Yuyu was staring at Lin Feng. Why had he turned into a demon? What had happened? Why did he have evil lights in his eyes? Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to them. His cold evil energy was becoming more intense. It seemed like his energies were going to swallow those two people. "Lin Feng!" shouted Junimoshi extremely loudly. His voice spread in the air, filled with the pure chi of righteousness. Junimoshi ignored the evil energies assaulting him. His pure chi of righteousness crashed onto Lin Feng's body and enveloped him. It wasn't an attack, it was just pure chi of righteousness, and the aim wasn't to hurt Lin Feng. Lin Feng sensed the pure chi of righteousness, which created a horrible and unpleasant feeling. The evil lights around his body became even more intense. He slowly raised the evil sword in the air and some killer chi invaded the atmosphere as if it had been about to engulf Tang Yuyu and Junimoshi. "Lin Feng, look at us!" shouted Junimoshi extremely loudly. They weren't moving back. Some golden chi of righteousness enveloped them and Lin Feng together. There was a massive amount of golden chi astonishing the crowd. They were sweating. Wasn't Junimoshi insane? He dared confront Lin Feng, who had already turned into a demon that might kill him. Tang Yuyu was anxious and wiped the sweat off her forehead. She looked at Lin Feng and shouted, "Wake up! Come back to reality!" The pure chi of righteousness made Lin Feng wake up a little bit. The evil lights dispersed a little bit and the hand which was holding the evil sword started shaking. "Go!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. His terrifying evil chi moved towards them and swallowed the vital chi of righteousness, which immediately disappeared. Junimoshi and Tang Yuyu were shaking. With one shout, Lin Feng had made the evil chi crash onto them, which threw them backwards. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling with killer energy. The crowd on the ground was suffocating. Lin Feng had slowly glanced down at them, giving them the feeling of being strangled. They were unable to move. They had the impression that two hands were on their throat and were strangling them when they looked at him. It seemed like he could kill them at any moment. Lin Feng was surrounded by evil killer energies. He was possessed by a demon, by the evil swords. It seemed like the evil intent of the swords had replaced his own. How scary! Even though Lin Feng killed those cultivators and made the others run away, it seems like he has become a demon for the eternity. He wouldn't have been able to kill those people without it, thought the crowd. They didn't dare look Lin Feng in the eyes, he might kill them then. Lin Feng could kill monstrously strong cultivators of the Tianqi layer now. If anyone talked or looked at him, he tried to kill them. There was nobody in Xueyu who could control Lin Feng anymore. If Lin Feng went insane, Xueyu would turn into a gigantic lake of blood and everybody would die. Erfurt! Lin Feng roared violently. The dark clouds kept rolling. All he wanted was to kill people right now. However, in his heart, very deep in his heart, there was a voice telling him to stop. Lin Feng nibbled his lips, which started bleeding. Amongst those people, there were his relatives and his friends. He couldn't kill them. Little Feng, shouted Yu Meng He. His mother, his father and his friends were looking at him hopelessly. How could he turn into a demon? Patriarch, shouted the people of the Yun Hai sect while looking up at their patriarch, shivering. It seemed like he was slightly becoming clear-headed again. However, the evil sword looked as cold as before. It seemed like it could kill them all at any moment. Boom boom boom. Rolling sounds spread in the air on the side of the imperial palace. Many armored horses galloped out of the palace. They had already taken over the imperial palace. However, Lin Feng was still a problem. All the horses were galloping in a perfect formation. They looked at Lin Feng raise his evil sword slowly. The troops jumped off their horses, knelt down and shouted, "General!" The atmosphere turned absolutely silent. There was only the evil qi rolling in the air. The troops were looking at their general respectfully, while releasing some qi which penetrated into Lin Feng's brain. Lin Feng started shaking violently. Patriarch! Shouted the people of the Yun Hai sect again when they saw that Lin Feng wasn't replying. They then all knelt down again. Their voices were shouting the word, Patriarch, in unison. At the same time, those voices also turned into a qi which covered Lin Feng's body. Even though that qi was weak, there were dozens and dozens of thousands of people which could influence Lin Feng's heart. Lin Feng's evil energy gradually dispersed. His evil sword started shaking insanely. Had he really turned into an authentic demon? Couldn't he regain his consciousness? How would he be able to get his revenge on other people? How would he be able to destroy the Deshu clan? And the East Sea Dragon Mountain? And the Jade Heaven Imperial family? All those people had to die. Meng Qing. Tears appeared in Lin Feng's pitch-black eyes and slowly started rolling down his cheeks. His hand was shaking more and more violently. Ah! Lin Feng roared as the sword moved back into his body. His body was shaking insanely, as if he had been in a demonic trance. He suddenly shot off into the distance. Woo! A subtle sound spread in the air. A white silhouette streaked across the sky and moved far away into the distance as well. Lin Feng was shaking even more violently. He was astonished to find Xue Linglong had landed in his arms. Those two beautiful eyes were looking into his. Tears kept flowing down Xue Linglong's face. Xue Linglong's fur kept shaking. She didn't want to move away from Lin Feng's arms. Meng Qing. Lin Feng seemed like he was regaining his consciousness. He was crying. He firmly hugged Xue Linglong and made a step forwards. He then moved away into the distance and disappeared into the horizon. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed and the atmosphere became normal again. Very quickly, the evil qi also started dispersing. However, people's hearts couldn't slow down for a very long time. So many people had died. The ground was filled with an incredible number of corpses. The troops from Duanren City had killed so many people in the Imperial Palace as well. They had conquered Xueyu. Amongst the people from the Yun Hai sect, many people had died. The Snow Dragon Guards had also died. The king of Xueyu, Duanren Huang, and a few cultivators of the Tianqi layer had all died. Lin Feng had used his evil sword and the world around them had changed. Lin Feng had killed everyone in his way. But then Meng Qing had jumped into his arms and his eyes had become warm and gentle again. Who was at the head of Xueyu now? The future of Xueyu was in Lin Feng's hands. However, Lin Feng had turned into a demon and his determination had been polluted by the intent of the evil swords. He had left because he didn't want to kill people anymore. Therefore, the Yun Hai sect was at the head of Xueyu. Lin Feng. shouted so many people when they saw him leave. Lin Feng had saved them. He had turned into a demon for them. Jun Emoshi and Tang Yuyu were astonished but remained silent for a very long time. Suddenly, Tang Yuyu ran after Lin Feng, surprising Jun Emoshi. "It's dangerous," shouted Jun Emoshi. "He cannot turn into an eternal demon," said Tang Yuyu determined. She continued running after Lin Feng. Jun Emoshi was stupefied. He gnashed his teeth and said, "I'm going back to Dragon Mountain to see if there is a way to cancel the transformation." Then his silhouette flickered abruptly and he left Xueyu back to Dragon Mountain. Chapter 729. Determination Battle. Tang Yuyu was anxious while flying through the sky. "Lin Feng, you cannot turn into a demon." Tang Yuyu was gnashing her teeth. She remembered how handsome and friendly Lin Feng was. He was a genius. How come he had turned into a demon? That was unfair. How many people had died? Cultivators who had a strong soul and high learning abilities could unceasingly progress on the path of cultivation. With their willpower and determination, they could control their destiny. The most important thing for a cultivator was his heart and his determination. Those who weren't determined and didn't persevere couldn't succeed. They couldn't become extremely strong cultivators. With his willpower and determination, Lin Feng could probably break free from the demon possessing his body. When Lin Feng saw Xueling Long, he almost became completely normal again. His soul was telling him that she was his wife. He loved her. It wasn't difficult for Tang Yuyu to follow Lin Feng with the terrifying evil energy emerging out of his body. She didn't know where he had gone, but she could track him thanks to the evil energy he left in the atmosphere. Tang Yuyu flew in the sky for a long time. Whistling sounds spread in the air around her. She didn't know how long she had been chasing, but she didn't stop. There was a mountain chain in front of her. It was the 9 Dragons mountain chain. The evil chi had penetrated into the mountain chain, which meant that Lin Feng was in there. Without hesitating, Tang Yuyu flew into the mountain chain as well and continued following the evil chi. She continued flying for a very long time, a few dozen kilometers, but she didn't see any ferocious wild beast. Lin Feng's evil chi had probably killed all of them on the way. Those who hadn't been killed had just run away. The evil chi is getting denser, thought Tang Yuyu, slowing down. She could sense the evil chi, which meant that she was getting close to Lin Feng. Blood. Tang Yuyu saw some blood in the distance. A gigantic, ferocious wild beast had died there and it had been cut by a sword. There was some evil chi on the beast. Tang Yuyu didn't need anyone to explain to her what had happened. She knew that Lin Feng was the author of the crime. There wasn't just one beast, there were many beasts. There were no exceptions. They had all been killed by one sword attack. No matter how strong the beasts were, they couldn't escape from him and his evil sword. Almost, Tang Yuyu noticed that the evil cold chi getting thicker in the air. She was walking neither too slow nor too quick in the direction of the energy. She didn't dare run too quickly. Lin Feng could kill her in one attack if he didn't recognize her. It would be a pity if she died. "I'm very close," thought Tang Yuyu anxiously. She was extremely nervous. In the distance, on a hill, there was a gigantic stone. Someone in a black Chong Pao was sitting on that huge stone. There was also the chi of a lonely fox there. The coldness of the evil energy was so scary that nobody would have wished to get close to it. Lin Feng was holding a snow-white fox in his arms. It was Xueling Long. They were both gazing into the distance as if they had been remembering something. Xueling Long was cuddling the demon as if the evil energy had been unable to affect her. She was almost immobile in his arm. Only her tummy was moving now as she was breathing. Xueling Long had a snowy white fur and small claws. Her small claws were leaving some small marks on Lin Feng's body. They were little and gentle marks, as if she had been massaging her lover. Lin Feng could feel that those claws were caressing his body. He lowered his head and looked at Xueling Long. It seemed like he had become gentle and normal again. He looked friendly. Xueling Long smiled at Lin Feng and moaned in a low voice. Her beautiful eyes could show that she was smiling. She was happy to see that Lin Feng almost seemed normal again. Lin Feng grabbed Xueling Long's body, raised her and put her head against his face. He looked less cold than before. His eyes held the impression that he was smiling. Tang Yuyu felt sad when she saw that. Her face turned red. What was love? How come a beast could make a demon look like a loving creature? Besides, Tang Yuyu was jealous of that small white beast with beautiful eyes. She envied her. Tang Yuyu didn't know what Lin Feng and Meng Qing had gone through together. She couldn't know what was going on between that demon and that beast. She didn't know how Lin Feng had met Meng Qing, how he had taught her how to ride a horse, how they had always been together until the moment she had turned into a beast. In that world, nobody had spent more time with Lin Feng than Meng Qing and vice versa. Meng Qing had always been following Lin Feng. She had seen him sad, discouraged, dispirited, happy. She had seen him show his amazing strength. She had always been calmly and silent watching him. She was still on his side now that he had transformed into a demon. Together they could abandon everything, they could forget the rest of the world. Tang Yuyu walked closer very gently. She didn't want to surprise Lin Feng or scare him. Lin Feng turned his head and he looked at Tang Yuyu in an evil and ice-cold way, which made her stop. She remained motionless. Evil lights started twinkling in Lin Feng's eyes, out of which deadly energies emerged and enveloped her body. She was suffocating. Tang Yuyu was staring at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng," said Tang Yuyu gently. She was convinced that she could help him and that he wouldn't kill her. "Go away," said Lin Feng in a deep voice. Tang Yuyu shook her head. "Get the hell out of here," shouted Lin Feng furiously while releasing some terrifying and piercingly cold killer energy which enveloped her body. Lin Feng didn't know what could happen. He might become extremely evil again and kill her. He didn't know how much he could control himself. "I'm not leaving," said Tang Yuyu loudly. She looked determined as she said, "Lin Feng, you can control yourself, you can remain clear-headed. It means that you can win against the evil energy. You have to believe in yourself and you will do it. You cannot turn into a demon, otherwise you will kill people you love. With your soul and your determination, I know that you can do anything." Lin Feng shivered. He looked puzzled. His qi was moving. Could he control himself? The intent left by the evil swords was terrifying. Kept polluting his own determination. He would definitely turn into a demon and a death god. "Lin Feng, you cannot tell yourself that you can't. Use your heart. Use your determination. Fight against your inner demon," said Tang Yuyu. It seemed like her words were really helping him. She was shouting loudly. According to her, Lin Feng could really succeed. Lin Feng had to come back to consciousness and could fight against the evil intent. "Defeat the evil intent," whispered Lin Feng. He clenched his fists, which emitted crackling sounds. Xue Linglong emitted some small cute sounds. She moved and caressed Lin Feng's face with her claws. She was showing Lin Feng that she loved him with her beautiful and resplendent smile. She was trying to make Lin Feng's heart melt. Chapter 730. Reigning over Xue Yu, her beautiful eyes were staring at Lin Feng. Those eyes belonged to Meng Qing. The evil qi started dispersing even more. Lin Feng lowered his head. He looked almost normal but still very cold. Tang Yuyu continued talking to Lin Feng. She felt a little bit more relaxed now. She had already seen Lin Feng fight and knew how determined he was. With his determination and willpower, he could definitely win against the demon, even if it was monstrously powerful. She didn't get too close to Lin Feng. She was 10 meters away from him when she sat down calmly. Lin Feng also calmed down. He still looked like an evil demon. He was just hugging Xue Linglong. Both of them were like one. The sun set and the night befell the earth. It looked like a world of demons. The ice-cold and dreary moon rose up in the sky. The wind was so cold. Even though the moon was cold, it was illuminating the earth, and Lin Feng raised his head to gaze up at it. He embraced the moonlight just like he was embracing Xue Linglong. They both raised their heads and looked at the beautiful moon. At that moment, Lin Feng and Meng Qing were recalling the first time they had met. On that night, Lin Feng was extremely depressed. In order to protect him, the people of the Yunhai sect had almost all died. Protector Bei had helped him escape. He had brought him to the Black Wind Mountain where he had met Meng Qing. Now there was the full moon and they were in the depths of a mountain chain again. However, that pure and holy celestial being was in Lin Feng's arms, and because of those bastards, she had turned into a beast again. When Lin Feng thought about those people, he released more terrifying killer qi and ice-cold energies. Lin Feng had to kill the people of East Sea Dragon Palace and of the Jade Heaven Imperial family. They had to pay with their blood, with their lives. Lin Feng had to get his revenge. Luckily, this time he had managed to exterminate the imperial family of Xue Yu. Otherwise, his family and loved ones would have died. Everything happened because he had refused to join the East Sea Dragon Palace, and because his existence was a threat for the Jade Heaven Imperial family. He had to kill those people because they wouldn't let him off. In their eyes, a human life was nothing. The only principle they knew was to kill those who were weak before they became stronger. Lin Feng wouldn't forget them, even if he had turned into a demon. The evil lights were rolling in his eyes. They were filled with killer qi. Not far from Lin Feng, a fire appeared. Tang Yuyu was sitting next to the fire. Her face felt hot. She was holding a stick with some meat on it, which she started grilling. The fire was making her feel warmer. Near Lin Feng, with the ice-cold moon in the sky, Tang Yuyu didn't feel that comfortable. Surprisingly, despite her terrific cultivation abilities, she felt cold. The meat was emitting some subtle sounds while grilling. The smell of the grilled meat spread in the air. It was appealing. Tang Yuyu cut the meat into two. She walked towards Lin Feng and gave some to him. Lin Feng raised his head and he looked less cold. He stretched his hand, accepted the meat Tang Yuyu offered him. He then said, "You should leave, Yuyu. I don't want to hurt you. I don't know how much longer I can control myself." "You still recognize me?" whispered Tang Yuyu. She was looking at Lin Feng and seemed to be blaming him. "The strength of the evil swords is devouring my determination. My own determination has taken over my body for the time being, but it could change any time. It could be swallowed again, so I don't want to harm you. I will not leave until you defeated the demon in your body. At that moment, if you ask me to leave, I will," said Tang Yuyu indifferently. She sounded firm. She then moved back to where she was sitting and sat down. She began eating some meat piece by piece slowly. She was enjoying her meal. Tang Yuyu looked like a real lady. She was very beautiful in the moonlight. However, Lin Feng wasn't in the mood to appreciate her beauty. Defeating the demon in his body was extremely difficult. He had unsheathed the 9 swords. That was extremely painful. He couldn't control the swords anymore. Their determination was incredible. It kept burning his own determination. During the battle, Lin Feng had almost entirely submitted himself to the evil swords. But then all the troops and members of the Yun Hai sect had knelt down in front of him. They had called him General and Patriarch. He had managed to control himself a little bit and had left with Meng Qing. All those people had helped him. The problem now was that he probably couldn't call back the swords into his body like before. He wasn't strong enough to do it now that he had already unsheathed all of them. Everything was calm at dusk in the imperial city of Shueyu. However, there was still a sea of corpses which didn't make people feel comfortable. Everybody in the country knew what had happened the day before. Those who had assisted to the events and had seen everything with their own eyes were still shocked. Those from the Lovesickness Forest and the Yun Hai sect had gone there to congratulate the newly married couple, but in the end were ambushed. Duanren Huang had come out in person and tried to kill them all. After that, the crowd had learnt more about the events which had taken place 20 years ago in the country. The 4 geniuses of the country used to be best friends, and then Duanren Huang had started hating them. It was then that he had reached the highest step in the hierarchy of the country. After that, Lin Feng's wife had turned into a Tian-level beast. The strong cultivators of Jade Heaven had appeared. Then the cultivators of Shengong had appeared. Duan Wuya had shown how strong he really was, and then the cultivators of the East Sea Dragon Palace had appeared. Everything was still appearing and looping in people's heads. Finally, Lin Feng had used his evil swords to annihilate everything and everyone. However, Lin Feng had turned into a demon, which was the price for using the evil swords. There were people from the Yun Hai sect and from Duanren City residing in the Imperial Palace. Those who used to be people of the Imperial Palace were all dead. It had been a bloodbath the day before. From that day on, Shueyu didn't belong to the Duan clan anymore. Shueyu was now Lin Feng's. Even if Lin Feng wasn't there at that moment, he was still the new king of Shueyu. Lin Feng just had to come back and he would be called Your Majesty by the people of his country. He could also choose to give that title to someone else. However, he would probably still be the one reigning over Shueyu. Nobody would dare oppose him. There was the gigantic rock still in the sky. Lin Hai, Yu Menghe, and Yun Fei Yang were on its back. Yun Fei Yang, thank you so much for coming and helping, said Lin Hai, who already knew everything. Lin Feng is one of my best friends, so don't thank me. Now Shueyu is yours. I hope that Mou and Shui Yu will be friends forever. Yes, said Lin Hai, nodding. Yun Fei Yang had helped them take over Shui Yu. Besides, Lin Feng and him were good friends. Shui Yu and Mou would be allies from then on. There would be no more wars between them. What do you intend to do? Asked Lin Hai to Yun Fei Yang. Go back to Mou, practice cultivating for some days, and then prepare to traverse into the mysterious world. Don't worry about Lin Feng. I am sure that he is strong enough to avoid danger. I have the feeling that I will see him soon, and that we will enter the mysterious world together. I hope so, sighed Lin Hai. Lin Feng had become a demon and nobody knew where he had gone. Besides, Lin Hai and Yu Menghe were powerless. They couldn't go and look for Lin Feng. Considering Lin Feng's state, nobody could predict what was going to happen in the future. I trust Lin Feng, you should trust him too, said Yun Fei Yang while smiling. All right, I'm off. Okay, said Lin Hai and the others while waving at him. Then the winged tiger flew off the back of the rock. The rock spread its wings and started flying off into the distance. When the rock disappeared in the horizon, Lin Hai and Yu Menghe looked at the imperial palace. Shui Yu was theirs. Nobody would be able to put pressure on them. The price had been terrible though. They wished things hadn't happened that way. I am worried for little Feng, said Yu Menghe. Lin Hai sighed and said, Little Feng is always lucky. I hope that this time luck bring him back. Besides, little Feng is different from us. He will become much stronger in the future. Chapter 731. The Ferocious Wild Beasts in the Mountain Chain. A demon was wandering around the depths of a mountain chain. That demon was releasing some terrifying evil and killer energies. On his shoulders was a little white fox. Her small claws were scratching the demon's face. The demon now and then released some even more terrifying ice-cold and killer energies. He looked ferocious and cruel. His killer chi was particularly thick and dense. However, each time he looked at Shui Linglong and her beautiful eyes, the chi got weaker and he looked less cold. His own determination burned stronger. Lin Feng had turned into a demon for Meng Qing, and could control himself for Meng Qing. For Meng Qing, he could control the evil swords and not turn into their slave. Behind Lin Feng was a silhouette slowly following him. It had been 3 days since Tang Yu started following Lin Feng. She had seen him in all sorts of states. Sometimes she could sense that the evil chi was getting weaker and sometimes she could sense that it was becoming stronger. Shui Linglong was probably someone very important to Lin Feng. She could glance once at him and it sufficed to make the evil energies weaken significantly. Tang Yu had many reasons to think that Lin Feng would have entirely turned into a demon if he hadn't Shui Linglong on his side. Then he would have had no way of coming back to his senses. In such a battle, your determination becomes much stronger as the evil determination becomes weaker. Finally, one day you win over the evil determination, thought Tang Yu. She firmly believed that Lin Feng could succeed. Even though Lin Feng remained silent and looked ice-cold, it was clear to Tang Yu that Lin Feng was carrying out an inner battle against the evil determination. He had gone to the mountain chain alone because he wanted to fight against the evil determination alone, and didn't want to harm other people. In front of them was a huge mountain at the bottom of which there was a cave. Some bestial chi was emerging out of the cave. It was probably a cave inhabited by ferocious wild beasts. However, Lin Feng didn't see the cave in the same way. Without stopping, he walked towards that cave. Lin Feng got closer to the entrance and the cave became clearer. Outside of the cave, surprisingly, there were several people guarding the entrance. Tang Yu was stupefied. Surprisingly, there were people. Those people weren't emitting a bestial chi, or maybe that it was some Tian level chi. Otherwise, they had to be real people. Those people saw Lin Feng and Tang Yu come. They were surprised, but they started smiling in an evil way. Lin Feng glanced at them indifferently and walked in another direction. However, those people didn't intend to let him leave so easily. Their silhouettes flickered and they appeared in front of him, blocking the way. Lin Feng frowned and released a terrifying killer energy. It was ice-cold and evil. Those people suddenly looked scared and started shaking. What a terrifying and thick evil energy, thought those people. Lin Feng didn't seem to be the right person to attack. Somebody groaned coldly and those people stopped moving. Kidnap them, said an evil voice slowly. It came from inside the cave. That voice sounded like that of a demon. Those people didn't dare move back, instead they moved towards Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. Huh. Tang Yuyu frowned when she saw those people. One voice had sufficed to make them suddenly look evil. How scary. Who was living in that cave? An ice-cold chi emerged out of those people's bodies while they slowly walked towards Lin Feng. The expression in their eyes looked cold. Lin Feng slowly put his hand on his back, and a terrifying evil energy started emerging out of his body and rolling in the atmosphere. A terrifying and brutal sword chi emerged in the atmosphere. It seemed like he was about to unsheath the terrifying sword. Lin Feng, don't set Tang Yuyu. You cannot use it again, otherwise you will kill me and Xue Ling Long. As expected, when Lin Feng heard Tang Yuyu, he didn't try to take out his evil sword. It seemed like a distant voice was calling him inside his head. He looked at Meng Qing and looked touched. Then he lowered his hand again, but his ice-cold chi didn't disperse. He was staring at those people. Die, said Lin Feng while releasing a terrifying killer energy. A gigantic black hand attacked those people and they were all enveloped by it. Boom boom. Some cracking sounds spread in the air. The evil hand crashed on those people's bodies and one of them died. However, the three others continued moving towards him, as if they hadn't seen anything. Besides, their heads were turning into claws and moving towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's evil chi kept rolling in the air and turned into a cross. The Yuxia demon used that cross. It then penetrated into someone's body and made him fly away, very far away in the distance. The other two attacked Lin Feng, but he didn't move at all. He kept releasing a terrifying evil energy which surrounded the two people. And then Lin Feng's hands both crashed on their heads. Both of them were crushed and collapsed lifeless. In a flash, 4 people had died in Lin Feng's hands and none of them remained. Tang Yuyu was calmly looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was terrifying now. He could kill people in one strike. Those 4 people weren't weak, they had all broken through to the 7th and 8th Xianqi layer. But in front of Lin Feng they were like insects, he could crush them with a single swat. Besides, Tang Yuyu was even more surprised by how those people reacted to death and to Lin Feng's strength. They hadn't been afraid at all. They continued moving forwards to kill him even though they had known that they were going to die. She kept staring at the entrance of the cave. Lin Feng's eyes looked ice-cold staring at the cave. His cold eyes were twinkling. Useless human beings, they're all trash, said a bestial voice inside the cave. At the same time, some wind started blowing and it contained some bestial chi. It's a ferocious wild beast. Tang Yuyu was stupefied. There was a beast in the cave, and that beast had been controlling the people who Lin Feng had just killed. Besides, that beast could talk, which meant that it was a Tian-level beast. The bestial chi was becoming more intense and emanating out of the cave. A vortex appeared and turned into a whistling hurricane outside of the cave. Some dust was rising in the air. Tian-level beast, such a strong chi, thought Tang Yuyu stupefied. There was a Tian-level beast in the cave. A strong wind was blowing and turning into a vortex. A black silhouette then came out of the cave in a flash. The bestial chi dashed to the skies. Beasts in a periphery of 50 kilometers could probably sense it, and were probably running away. A few useless human beings died. 2 more have come, no problem, they will become my new slaves, it's not bad either. The bestial chi was becoming more and more intense. The vortex became weaker and under the bestial qi appeared a silhouette. It was a beast. That beast was extremely thin and it looked like an illusion, however. Its hands were on its waist as if that beast had been trying to look like a human. However, Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu's reaction wasn't what the beast had expected. Both of them remained immobile, which made the beast groan coldly. Evil lights twinkled in the eyes of the beast. It then slowly turned around and saw 2 uninvited human beings. However, when the beast saw Lin Feng, it was stupefied and started shaking. Chapter 732. Here is the cat again. Lin Feng looked at that beast in an ice-cold way. He was stupefied too. His heart even started pounding. Meow. What a handsome young man, but his face looked evil. His face was filled with bestial energies. That beast was turning into a human being but was meowing like a cat. How strange. It's you, said Lin Feng while releasing a terrifying evil energy. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling with evil lights. It was frightening. His black hair and black chong pao started fluttering in the wind. A cat had just appeared in front of him. Back in the 9 Dragons mountain chain, He had already seen that cat and he had managed to make him run away. He had even used his evil sword. That beast was a Tian-level beast. Lin Feng had then defeated it, making it turn into a cat again. However, the cat had a human appearance again and its chi was extremely bestial. Lin Feng understood something. It meant that even if the transformation process had been interrupted once, it could be restarted at some point just like the cat had done. When Lin Feng saw the cat, he then looked at Xue Linglong and hope suddenly regained his heart. The cat had managed to start the transformation process again. It meant that Meng Qing could also start it again. Meng Qing and Tang Yu obviously didn't know what Lin Feng was thinking at that moment. When they heard Lin Feng say it's you, they just guessed that the Tian-level beast and Lin Feng knew each other. The cat didn't know why Lin Feng had been acting so bravely. The cat should have been the one acting bravely and fearlessly. The cat looked ice cold. This time he didn't attack. Lin Feng's evil chi was telling him that Lin Feng had used the evil swords again. That terrifying evil chi was extremely powerful. That's fate. I wouldn't have thought that we would meet again, said the cat while staring back at Lin Feng. Some ominous glints were twinkling in his eyes. It seemed like he could attack Lin Feng at any time. It seems like you turned into a demon. You probably can't control the evil energies anymore and became the slave of your swords, right? Said the cat, as if he had been saying something deep and profound, but Lin Feng showed no reaction. He ignored him. He just made some heavy steps forwards. In a flash, a terrifying killer chi spread in the air and moved towards the cat. The evil chi kept rolling in the atmosphere. A terrifying sword energy kept whistling in the air. The evil sword immediately emerged out of Lin Feng's body again. He hadn't hesitated at all. He had already forgotten everything Tang Yu had told him. The evil sword streaked across the sky, leaving an arch-shaped trail. Some dark clouds were roaring and rolling in the sky. The atmosphere became particularly gloomy. Some evil whistling sounds spread in the air as the sword landed in Lin Feng's hands. Tell me how you started the human transformation process again. There were evil lights as well as normal lights appearing in his eyes, which was why he could ask the cat that question so sanely. The cat's eyes were twinkling. He felt scared when he sensed Lin Feng's terrifying evil chi. As expected, Lin Feng had turned into a demon and was using that terrifying evil sword. However, he couldn't control it properly, and he had already started turning into a proper demon. Xue Linglong. When the cat looked at the beast on Lin Feng's shoulders, he smiled in a hideous and strange way. It seemed like he understood Lin Feng's question. Haha, you've been punished. That Xue Linglong is really beautiful. Unfortunately, just like me in the past, her transformation process was interrupted. Are you the one who did it too? Said the cat in a husky voice. It seemed like he was trying to provoke Lin Feng. Tang Yu understood what had happened. Lin Feng had interrupted the cat's transformation process previously. However, the cat had managed to start it again. Therefore, Lin Feng was asking the cat that question because he had hoped for Meng Qing again. Unfortunately, I will not tell you, said the cat in a husky voice while smiling in an evil and cruel way. Die! A terrifying evil chi started rolling in the air again. Lin Feng's sword immediately streaked across the sky, leaving a black trail behind. Meow, the cat meowed in a sharp and strident way. He bent his entire body and moved away at the speed of light. Some rumbling sounds spread in the air and Lin Feng's evil sword crashed on the top of the hill, cutting it into two. However, Lin Feng didn't see that. He had continued chasing the cat in the sky, which was immediately invaded by evil energies and evil intent. Zirr. Thurr. A terrifying evil sword light illuminated the atmosphere and the cat groaned. He continued escaping and was avoiding Lin Feng's attack. His body then slowly transformed into a cat. Evil lights were moving towards the cat, but he kept avoiding them. Some rumbling sounds were spreading in the atmosphere and mountains were being destroyed. The mountain chain looked like a battlefield at that moment. Lin Feng was terrifying. He looked like a demon again. If the cat hadn't transformed into a cat again, he would have already died by that sword. Die! Shouted Lin Feng again. That sword was magnificent and dazzling. An evil light illuminated the entire atmosphere. The cat saw two sword lights on both sides and another sword was already attacking. He hadn't prepared for that. Meow. The cat raised his claws and his body became much bigger. His claws looked ice cold and dangerous. Boom! A bestial chi spread in the air and moved towards the sword light. The loud evil chi kept rolling in the air and crashed into the bestial chi. The bestial chi was annihilated and disappeared. Some metallic sounds then spread in the air as the claws of the cat and the sword collided. He had managed to stop the sword. The cat shouted in pain and transformed into a human being again. Some more rumbling sounds spread around them. Surprisingly, he moved away and crashed into a mountain. He didn't dare fight against Lin Feng. The sword had already damaged his internal organs with that last strike. He might die if he continued fighting against Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng's sword crashed on a huge stone. The evil energy kept rolling in the air. The stones Lin Feng was hitting were turning into powder. Then Lin Feng entered the abdomen of the mountain without hesitation. Tang Yuyu gnashed her teeth when she saw Lin Feng disappear inside. She followed him into the newly created cave as well. Lin Feng knew that the cat was blocked in the mountain. The cat would try to reach the other end. In that cave there was only bestial chi. The cat tried to dig in the depths of the mountain to go back to the cave where he had created his own palace. Boom boom boom. The evil energies kept bombarding the walls of the tunnel. Lin Feng was still following the cat. He didn't intend to let him off. He had to know how to turn into a human being again. Lin Feng discovered a palace in the mountain. It was only a small part of the cave. They even ran on a bridge over a lake and reached the depths of the palace. They were moving deeper and deeper, but Lin Feng kept releasing evil energies without stopping. Finally, they reached the other end of the palace. It seemed to be the main hall of the palace. There were pearls and mosaics everywhere, making the palace look particularly beautiful and well lit. Those beautiful precious stones were illuminating Lin Feng's body. There was a beautiful throne decorated with incredibly beautiful precious stones there. Surprisingly, there was a man sitting on it and he was wearing a beautiful chong pao. His eyes were closed. The cat then jumped into the arms of that man and purred. At that moment, the evil cat looked like a docile and gentle pet. Chapter 733 Zun Cultivator. Lin Feng was looking at the man who was wearing a blue chong pao. Lin Feng's eyes looked as evil as before. The cat was just rubbing his head against the man's chest. From his eyes, one could guess that he was smiling in an evil way as if Lin Feng was about to die. Tang Yuyu finally arrived too. When she saw the cat calmly sitting on the man's laps, she started shivering. The cat was a Tian-level beast. However, it looked like a docile pet to that man. What did it mean? It meant that the man was probably infinitely stronger than the cat. Maybe he was a cultivator who had broken through to the very top of the Tian Qi layer. The situation was extremely dangerous for Lin Feng at that moment. What a thick and heavy evil qi, said a deep voice at that moment. The man slowly opened his eyes in which blue lights were twinkling. Lin Feng immediately released some evil energies as if he hadn't cared about anything. From head to foot, he was covered with evil energies and wasn't reacting at all. Oh, there's Shui Linglong as well, said the man with a resplendent smile. He looked greedy. What a terrifying evil sword. And Shui Linglong as well, very good. Little cat, you're a good cat, said the man while petting the cat. Meow. The cat purred. He was happy to be complimented. It rubbed its head against the man's hands and chest again. Don't worry, if you're good I will make you become a terrifying, strong, ferocious wild beast, said the man, as if he had understood what the cat meant. The man slowly stood up and in a flash a terrifying chi invaded the entire palace. Tang Yuyu was astonished. She had the impression that she was in a swamp and that she couldn't move. She looked terrified as she stared at the man. Words wouldn't come out of her mouth. Was that only intent? She had the impression that that person was the monstrously strong cultivator they had seen in Shandgong the other time. The Zun cultivator, whispered Tang Yuyu. Her chest was bouncing back and forth at full speed. If it was the Zun cultivator, could he save Lin Feng? You're good, you have good eyes, said the man indifferently, glancing at Tang Yuyu. It was really the Zun cultivator. Mister, we didn't want to offend you. I hope you can forgive us, said Tang Yuyu nodding. Nobody wanted to offend such a strong cultivator. You can go. You don't need to get involved, little girl, said the strong cultivator. However, Tang Yuyu didn't move and pointed her finger at Lin Feng. What about him? His evil intent is too thick. The demon transformation process is too advanced already. I must kill him, imagine if he hurt you, said the man smiling. He was a Zun cultivator. He obviously understood that Lin Feng was possessed by the evil sword and how dangerous it was. Besides, the one who used to control that evil sword was even stronger than himself. Lin Feng couldn't control them. Maybe the Zun cultivator could control it though. Xuelinglong was also an extremely precious, ferocious wild beast. He didn't want to let her off. He wanted to obtain her. His life would be even better. Mr. He, said Tang Yuyu, who wanted to add something, but Lin Feng turned his head around and looked at her in an ice-cold way. He then shouted furiously, "Get the hell out of here!" Tang Yuyu looked at Lin Feng and saw him jump towards her. A terrifying physical strength surrounded her body. A terrifying fist filled with evil energies then crashed onto her body and she was projected outside of the cave. Blood splashed out of her mouth too. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the man in the blue Chong Pao. His evil energies were more and more intense. You haven't entirely turned into a demon. It seems you still have some human characteristics, said the man indifferently. Lin Feng obviously understood what it meant. Lin Feng ignored him and lowered his head. He just looked at Xuelinglong and said, "Meng Qing, if I turn into a real demon, you must leave." Whoa! Xuelinglong kept shaking her head and put her head in Lin Feng's neck. She was so scared. She didn't want Lin Feng to hit her like he had done with Tang Yuyu though. Lin Feng turned his head and looked at the man. He released a terrifying evil light and stopped using his own intent to resist to the evil intent. A terrifying evil rolling chi started swallowing his own determination. His evil sword started shaking intensely. That terrifying evil chi invaded the entire palace and made the walls shake. It seemed like the palace was going to cave in. Huh. The man was stupefied while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes were entirely black at that moment and filled with evil intent. Lin Feng's entire body looked like a sword. He wasn't a human being anymore, he was a sword. "You're willingly turning into a demon. You want to kill yourself," shouted the man furiously. Lin Feng was surprisingly letting the evil sword take control over his body. The evil sword was terrifyingly strong. It might have been stronger than the Zun cultivator in its previous life. If it took over Lin Feng's body completely, it might be able to regain that strength. Of course, Lin Feng's body would be unable to take it and would probably get torn apart. The Zun cultivator raised his hand and released some terrifying sealed doors. Lin Feng's body seemed like it was frozen. The Zun cultivator's sealed doors were infinitely stronger than those of Duan Wu Dao or Duan Ren Huang. It seemed like he could seal the entire world. The evil sword was diffusing some terrifying evil lights. Then the sword divided itself into 9 swords. They were emitting whistling sounds and were colliding with the sealed doors. Then the 9 swords became one again and bombarded the atmosphere in the direction of the man. Lin Feng didn't control the sword anymore. The sword was controlling itself. It was acting according to its own will independently of what Lin Feng was thinking or wanted. Boom boom boom. The sword destroyed the walls of the cave. The man groaned coldly and in front of him appeared a blue circle. It was filled with the strength of the sealed doors and it surrounded the sword. Crack! The evil sword destroyed the blue light and continued moving towards the man, which surprised him. That evil sword was, as expected, terrifying. The sword was showing its terrifying strength at that moment. Something it couldn't do back when Lin Feng still tried to resist it. The man raised both his hands and blue lights moved towards the sword. The man then shouted furiously, "Go back!" The blue lights got destroyed and the evil sword moved back. Lin Feng made a step forwards and caught the evil sword during its flight. It seemed like Lin Feng was in perfect fusion with the evil sword. He then turned into a black sword, as if he had merged with the evil sword and threw himself at the man. This time Lin Feng was the evil sword. Human sword fusion, sword intent. No wonder that the evil sword chose him as a master, shouted the Zun cultivator furiously. That terrifying sword was putting too much pressure on him. It was lacerating the atmosphere as it chased him. The walls all around them were breaking apart. Boom boom. The man rose up in the air, but the evil sword followed him, breaking everything. The entire mountain was shaking as it caved in. The two of them emerged out of the mountain and the entire mountain chain started shaking. There were 2 men and a sword in the air. More precisely, there was 1 man and 1 sword. Lin Feng had fused together with the black sword. The earth and sky were shaking and strident whistling sounds kept spreading about the mountain chain. The black clouds in the sky were rolling and tossing furiously. An infinite amount sword energy was moving towards the man. The man started moving his hands as if he had been dancing. The atmosphere was suddenly illuminated by a blue light. It seemed like the sky was regaining its normal colors. "Even if you go insane, you will still die," shouted the man coldly. He jumped forwards and threw himself at the evil sword. If Lin Feng had been a cultivator of the Tianqi layer and had fused together with the evil sword, he would have been able to compete with the Zun cultivator. However, Lin Feng was too weak, so the sword couldn't deploy its full strength. The blue light kept illuminating the sky and shining upon Lin Feng's body. That extreme strength made Lin Feng's body shake. A cultivator of the Zun Qi layer was too strong. Even as a demon, Lin Feng couldn't resist to him. A light flashed and a black stone appeared in the sky. That stone suddenly became gigantic and turned into a stone tablet which read, "Sealed Demon." That stone contained the demon which was sealed inside. Chapter 734. The restriction. There was a terrifying sealed door's strength in that tablet. Lin Feng could sense that his evil sword was shaking as if it had been trying to break the seal. "You used the evil sword, so I sealed it, and now I will kill you. Then I will take the evil sword," said the man, smiling coldly. He then immediately raised his hands and condensed some sealed door's energy. A black beam of light emerged out of the stone tablet and it enlarged, as big as a palace. The word "sealed demon" became dazzling. "Go!" shouted the man furiously. In the blink of an eye, the stone tablet turned into a black light and rumbling sound spread in the air while it shot out towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng still looked like a demon and was still holding the evil sword. A terrifying sword light then moved towards the stone tablet. Boom, boom, boom. The sword crashed onto the stone tablet and made it shake violently. However, it didn't break, and there was no sign that it was going to break either. It was only shaking. The stone tablet is a precious treasure. Even though your evil sword is extremely strong, you can't do anything against it," said the man while laughing evilly. He had faith in that stone tablet. The stone tablet was a stone which came from ancient ages and could seal evil deities. Rumors said that the stone tablet used to be one, but it had then be broken into 4 or 5 pieces. The stone tablet in front of Lin Feng was one of those pieces. It was the first time that he saw it. That stone tablet was related to the abstruse significance in the Zun Qi layer. "Go!" Some sealed door's light crashed on the stone tablet, making it move forwards towards Lin Feng. A terrifying black light surrounded Lin Feng, and the evilness in his body seemed to be constricted. The evil sword even started shaking violently. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. Lin Feng fearlessly attacked with his sword again. It was filled with intent. It seemed like the atmosphere was going to be torn apart. However, it still couldn't make the stone tablet move. Boom, boom, boom. The stone tablet and Lin Feng's evil sword collided, which released a terrifying sealed door's strength. The sealed demon stone tablet released an even more terrifying black light which started controlling Lin Feng's evil sword and made it shake even more brutally. "You still haven't broken through to the Tianqi layer, so you can't do anything. Even if you have the evil sword, you cannot fight against someone who is so much stronger than you," said the man. His hands were dancing in the air even faster, and another terrifying black light shone upon the stone tablet. The man then shouted, "Seal!" Boom! The evil sword continued shaking violently. Many small black seals emerged out of the stone tablet and completely surrounded the evil sword. The stone tablet wanted to seal the evil sword. The evil sword had its own intent and was not resigned to give up. Some rumbling sound spread in the air, and the evil sword moved aside, letting the terrifying seal strength penetrate into Lin Feng's body. It seemed like the evil sword wanted to avoid the stone tablet. "You want to escape?" said the Zun cultivator while smiling and looking at the evil sword. He could easily kill Lin Feng. Where would the evil sword hide then? Only cultivators of the Tianqi layer had a chance to resist against such strong cultivators. After all, such strong cultivators were like the clouds of the continent of the 9 clouds. People who were very lucky might manage to escape, but those who had no luck would easily die. The Zun cultivator was very lucky though. He had managed to obtain the stone tablet, and now he was going to obtain the evil sword. "Seal!" shouted the man again, releasing some seal energy out of his hands. Even if the evil sword wanted to escape, the Zun cultivator wasn't going to give up. Even if he killed Lin Feng, he still wanted to obtain the evil sword. That stone tablet was going to be the nemesis of that evil sword. The stone tablet was releasing a particular light. That particular light was a hologram of a gigantic mountain. It looked like an illusion as it slowly became smaller, and immediately penetrated into Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng started shaking violently, just like the evil sword. The stone tablet could also penetrate into his body. It was chasing the evil sword to seal it. After that, the evil sword and the stone tablet penetrated into Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's evil lights weakened a lot. The evil sword was in his body and was being sealed by the stone tablet. Lin Feng's evil personality was also fading. Lin Feng was distressed facing the man. Without the strength of the evil sword, he couldn't do anything. That man was a cultivator of the Zun Qi layer. The man looked at Lin Feng and smiled. His face was filled with murder. Lin Feng was doomed. Meow. The cat rose up in the air and looked delighted. His venerable master was incredible. Lin Feng had hurt him and interrupted his transformation process, and now Lin Feng had run into the man in the blue Chong Pao. Because of Lin Feng, the cat had become the slave of the Zun cultivator and had his dreams destroyed. A strange and bestial light twinkled around Lin Feng's body in the air. Tang Yuyu's face was red and she looked ice cold. Lin Feng was an incredible genius. Was he going to die? Sadly, he had come across a cultivator of the Zun Qi layer. Lin Feng was probably not going to give up that easily. Now die, said the Zun cultivator while releasing some more blue light sealing the atmosphere. Lin Feng watched as the cultivator ran towards him. Was he going to die? Lin Feng really didn't want to die. He still had so much to do and still had to get his revenge. He hadn't even helped Meng Qing become a human being again. He didn't want to die. Die! Shouted the Zun cultivator furiously. A terrifying hand filled with physical strength moved towards Lin Feng's chest. If it reached Lin Feng, he would die instantly. Meng Qing, escape! Shouted Lin Feng desperately. Xueling Long and him moved backwards together. Woo woo! Xueling Long was running in the sky and uttered a long and mournful cry. Some tears appeared in her eyes as she moved back and forth. She didn't want to abandon Lin Feng. However, it was already too late. Boom! The Zun cultivator's hand crashed onto Lin Feng's chest and Lin Feng started shaking violently. This time it seemed like time had stopped. Meng Qing and Tang Yuyu were stunned. They both started crying. A human being and a beast were both crying. Meng Qing was furious, however, she was too weak to do anything. Tang Yuyu's heart also felt very painful. She had never been so sad in her life. Die! Shouted the Zun cultivator while releasing a terrifying physical strength which enveloped Lin Feng's body. Boom! A terrifying white light illuminated the atmosphere. It came from Lin Feng's body. It was dazzling. Tang Yuyu and Meng Qing couldn't see anything anymore. After that white light appeared, a terrifying qi also emerged. The Zun cultivator moved backwards. After his attack, he realized that the dazzling light wasn't Lin Feng's light. It seemed like something incredible had been released. He was staring at Lin Feng but only saw a white light in front of him which then turned into a silhouette. That person was an old man. That old man's qi was terrifying. His long hair was messy. It looked real and illusional at the same time. That qi made the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer shiver. What was happening? Lin Feng surprisingly had something protecting his soul? A protector? At the moment when Lin Feng was about to die, that old man's silhouette had appeared. Chapter 735. Controlling the evil sword. Lin Feng was also astonished when he saw the old man. As astonished as the Zun level cultivator. Lin Feng didn't know that something or someone was protecting his soul. He was wondering who that protector was. Meng Qing and Tang Yuyu were just as astonished. Immediately after, hope invaded their hearts again. Lin Feng hadn't died, he was still alive. Surprisingly, a strong cultivator was protecting Lin Feng's soul. The old man moved forwards and appeared in front of the Zun level cultivator. A terrifying oppressing energy crashed on the Zun cultivator's body, making his soul shake. Surprisingly, he felt absent-minded. It seemed like he couldn't release qi anymore. It seemed like that illusion was making him suffocate and was going to kill him. "Get lost," shouted the old man. His voice was terrifying. The Zune cultivator was suddenly projected backwards 1,000 meters. He couldn't breathe anymore, he could only stare at the illusion. How terrifying. It was a Zune cultivator as well, but at that level, one layer could make a huge difference. Besides, Lin Feng's protector was stronger than the man in blue of one cultivator layer. The man in blue couldn't even see how strong the protector was. That illusion soul was making him suffocate. It seemed like Lin Feng's protector could destroy his soul. "Mister," said the Zune cultivator in blue clothes. He then slightly bowed and said, "Mister, I didn't know that you and him were related. I didn't mean to offend you. I will take my things and leave immediately." The illusion frowned and released some more oppressive energy which strangled the man in blue. He then said, "I told you to get lost." The Zune cultivator in blue was astonished and gulped down. It seemed like he was swallowing a stone while gulping down. Lin Feng was weak, he could kill him and steal the evil sword as well as Xue Linglong. However, at the last moment that old man appeared. His opponent still had his stone tablet, and he couldn't do anything to prevent him keeping it. The weak were the praise of the strong. "Mister, I am leaving," said the Zune cultivator in the blue Chong Pao. He turned around, jumped and left without hesitation. He didn't want to offend his opponent even more. While leaving, he grabbed the cat by the tail. The cat felt endlessly humiliated. He was a Tian-level beast and was incredibly strong. But his master was being so cruel to him and was treating him like an object. Very quickly the Zune cultivator in blue clothes disappeared into the distance. Meng Qing and Tang Yu were endlessly relieved. They had thought that Lin Feng was about to die. They had been terrified. The old man slowly turned around. While looking at that silhouette, Lin Feng was unable to calm down. At that moment, Lin Feng couldn't imagine what that extremely strong cultivator was doing in front of him. Lin Feng was extremely far from such a cultivation level. In the past, that old man had left, but Lin Feng had always known that the cultivator was incredibly strong. Lin Feng had never thought that he was this strong. Besides, he had never imagined that the cultivator would have left a protection in his body. In case of danger, he was protected. That protection was only the soul of the person and could scare away cultivators of the Zune Qi layer. He had just said, "Get lost," and the enemy of the Zune Qi layer had been scared to death. "Mr. Xiao," said Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't imagine that an old doctor, who had saved his life, would be able to scare a Zune cultivator to death with 2 words. Lin Feng was astonished. Xue Linglong moved back onto Lin Feng's shoulders. Tang Yu arrived behind Lin Feng. She was astonished. Lin Feng knew such strong cultivators. Besides, it seemed Lin Feng didn't even know that he was protected. Mr. Xiao nodded and sighed. "Lin Feng, you're brave, very brave." Lin Feng smiled wryly. He wasn't that brave. The demon had made him done that. He hadn't acted recklessly voluntarily. The evil sword had been controlling him. You're lucky he tried to gain an advantage only to end worse off. Besides, the stone plate can help you control that sword. I helped you get that stone plate. In the future you will be able to use the evil sword, but not for a very long time each time. You will need to wait to become stronger to be able to control it by yourself. Maybe you will be lucky in the future," said Mr. Xiao. Lin Feng smiled wryly. He was indeed very lucky. Of course, lucky or not, if Mr. Xiao hadn't appeared, Lin Feng would have died. Mr. Xiao put his hand on Lin Feng's body and the stone plate moved out, almost as if it wanted to move away. However, when the stone plate moved out, the evil qi appeared again. Lin Feng's eyes became evil again and the evil sword was starting to control him again. "Where are you going?" shouted Mr. Xiao. A terrifying soul strength moved towards the stone plate and caught it in the air. The stone plate started shaking insanely as a fire appeared in the air. The stone plate was on fire. "Destroy!" shouted Mr. Xiao. A subtle sound spread in the air, and it seemed like the entire region had been destroyed. The stone plate stopped moving and became calm again. It was releasing some seal qi. "Lin Feng, you must put blood on it to possess it," said Mr. Xiao in an extremely loud voice which made Lin Feng clear-headed again. He then cut his finger and let a drop of blood drip onto the stone plate. Immediately after, his soul appeared and a dazzling light emerged out of the stone plate. Lin Feng could clearly sense that his soul and the stone plate were connected. As expected, it is an incredible treasure. Lin Feng was realizing how incredible the stone plate was. Some memories appeared in his head with instructions on how to use the stone plate. That stone plate was like the evil sword. It had its own memories and its own life. Mr. Xiao didn't need to tell him anything anymore. Lin Feng immediately raised his hand and his strength grabbed the stone plate. He then shouted extremely loudly, "Seal me!" Boom boom boom. The stone plate started shaking violently and released some strength which was going to seal the evilness in his body. An illusion appeared out of the stone plate and penetrated into his body. It was sealing the evil sword. In a flash, Lin Feng's evil energies and evil intent dissipated. He gradually started looking normal again. Phew! Lin Feng breathed deeply as if he had come back to life. At that moment there were two treasures in his body, but they had different functions. If other strong cultivators knew about them, they would definitely try to kill Lin Feng to steal them. Alright. I don't have too much time. Take care of yourself and remember one thing: strength is the key to everything. External things which have their own life and their own intent sometimes want to be independent, warned Mr. Xiao. He then added, I helped you, remember to take care of Xiaoya. Mr. Xiao, shouted Lin Feng while glancing at Meng Qing. Mr. Xiao already knew what Lin Feng wanted to ask. Your wife can become a human being again. I won't tell you how because you are too weak. If I tell you, you will try to do things which you are incapable of doing and that may kill you. If you want to save her, become stronger and come to the holy city in the middle of the continent. I am a cultivator of the Zunqi layer and I can help you. So come and look for me when you are stronger. However, don't bring Xiaoya with you to the holy city. Then Mr. Zhao's soul gradually disappeared and vanished. Lin Feng was still looking at the same place. He couldn't realize what was happening. Xiaoya's grandfather, Xiao Wutian, was a doctor. Yet he was monstrously strong and had put a protection in Lin Feng's body. If he had been traveling with Xiaoya, how dangerous would it have been? Maybe Xiaoya's body was also protected. I am not telling you how to do it because you are too weak. Lin Feng clenched his fists. He was still too weak. Well, he was weak in comparison with the strongest cultivators of the world, of course. He couldn't even protect himself in front of those cultivators. He couldn't really protect his friends or family members either. He needed to become even stronger, and then he would be able to help Meng Qing turn into a human being again. Chapter 736. Bloodbath at Night. For Lin Feng, the evil sword was a burden and the stone plate was a burden too. If he became extremely strong, he would be able to use them better. Everything was about strength. Lin Feng said Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng turned around. Because of the sword he had been evil and hadn't really recognized her before. However, now the evil sword was under control. At least he didn't look extremely evil anymore. His eyes still looked cold, but at least he looked like a human being. Tang Yuyu felt relieved. Lin Feng had finally become a human being again. How great! He had nearly turned into a monster and died. Yuyu, thank you so much, said Lin Feng, nodding. Tang Yuyu shook her head and tried to fix her messy hair with her hands. She was still worried about her appearance. She wanted to look beautiful in front of Lin Feng. What do you want to do? Go back to Shuiyu? Asked Tang Yuyu. No, said Lin Feng, shaking his head. Cold lights were twinkling in his eyes. Those people think that I am a demon, they might try to kill me. Because of the restrictions which exist in order to go to the mysterious world, they will not allow Duan Wu Dao or Duan Wuya to go back to Shuiyu either. They are probably practicing cultivation very hard to become even stronger. They all want to go to the mysterious world. If I kill them in there, they will never make it back to Shuiyu. Duan Wu Dao was now a member of the Jade Heaven Imperial family, and Duan Wuya had joined the East Sea Dragon Palace. They were both extremely strong and had strong influential groups backing them up. After leaving Shuiyu, Lin Feng had turned into a demon. They hadn't forgotten about him. They all wanted to get back what they had lost. Everything was going to be solved after leaving for the mysterious world. Tang Yuyu slightly nodded. Lin Feng was right. The people of the East Sea Dragon Palace and of the Jade Heaven Imperial family had gotten involved in the affairs of Shuiyu. Duan Wu Dao and Duan Wu Ya would all go to the mysterious world. For them, the mysterious world was going to mean a lot, so they would put aside all their problems for the moment. Let's go together, said Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng looked at her and slightly nodded. I need to go Mi-cheng first. Mi-cheng? Tang Yuyu was stupefied. What did he want to do in Mi-cheng? Did he consider himself a member of Shengong, or was he their enemy now? Lin Feng knew what Tang Yuyu was thinking and said, I will go to the mysterious world, but I will not represent Shengong there. Everything is all about oneself to them. If I wanted to represent a sphere of influence, I would rather choose the Nine Cloud Sword sect or the Necropolis sect, said Lin Feng. He was an independent thinker. Lin Feng was good, but Shengong's way of solving things didn't make him feel happy. He was infuriated. They had no moral values. Lin Feng's heart was filled with coldness and even more determination. Lin Feng wanted to go to the mysterious world for himself to become stronger. Well, then you want to go to Mi-cheng, said Tang Yuyu, surprised. The Deshu clan, said Lin Feng coldly. Tang Yuyu's heart was also filled with coldness at that moment. The Deshu clan was going to be eradicated. The Deshu clan had participated to the massacre in Shuiyu. Even though Deshu Kong had been killed by Lin Feng wasn't going to let them off. The demon in his heart hadn't completely left his heart. He still felt like a killer. He had gone through too many hardships. Meng Qing had become a beast again. Lin Feng's heart was really filled with an endless coldness. Even if he wasn't a demon, he still felt the urge to kill. Xue Linglong was on Lin Feng's shoulder. She moved into Lin Feng's arms and looked at him. From her eyes one could see that she was smiling. Lin Feng would have become normal again. He hadn't turned into a demon. Meng Qing was of course very happy about it. There was an illusional fog all over Mi-cheng. It looked mysterious, almost like it didn't even exist at all. It was so mysterious. Outside of Mi-cheng, a black, ferocious, wild beast was approaching the city. Riding it were two people, a girl and a boy. The boy was wearing a black chong pao and he looked extraordinary. However, he looked like a killer. The expression in his eyes was so cold that people had the feeling they were going to freeze when staring at them. That girl was extremely beautiful but looked elegant and cold. She also looked extraordinary. Besides, that ice-cold-looking young man was carrying a little and very beautiful beast in his arms. That small beast was snowy white. It was a little fox. Besides, her eyes were extremely beautiful and looked like those of a celestial being. Go back, said Lin Feng while jumping off the back of the ferocious wild beast. The beast then immediately went back to its own forest. Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng jumped onto the ground and moved towards Mi-cheng. The great competition of Shuiyu was finished. Mi-cheng was an extremely calm and peaceful city at that moment. In the vast city, people had not realized that one of the four greatest groups of influence was about to disappear from the city. The Deshu clan. It was a peaceful yet dreary and desolate night. The air was fresh and a gentle breeze was sweeping away. However, the atmosphere in the Deshu clan didn't feel only cool. They felt ice-cold. The news had spread that Deshu Kong had been killed in Shuiyu. They knew that he had been killed by their enemy Lin Feng. That news had infuriated the Deshu clan. If the news was true, it was a catastrophe for their clan, and the consequences would be just as catastrophic. Their only cultivator of the Tianqi layer had died. The consequences would be tragic. The three other groups of influence in Mi-cheng wouldn't let them live on in peace, they would swallow them. It would give the opportunity to other smaller influential groups of Mi-cheng to rise too. The Deshu clan would get swallowed by all of those groups. The news had enraged the Deshu clan. Therefore, it was a piercingly cold night for them. They were all in a meeting room and talking about the future of the clan. They didn't know that a ghost-like person had entered their clan and was hunting them. A sword chi spread in the air and was emitting some subtle sounds in the darkness of the night. However, that sword energy wasn't too subtle, it could kill people. Very quickly, the people of the Deshu clan were surrounded by a blood chi. The patrolling guards of the clan smelt something strange in the middle of the night. However, a black silhouette appeared in front of them just like an evil spirit. That black silhouette was holding a bloodthirsty sword. It looked evil as some blood was dripping from it. They opened their mouth, they wanted to shout and call for help, but they only saw a red light streak across the sky which swallowed them in a flash. Blood splashed and was immediately absorbed into that sword. The black silhouette continued moving forwards. A gentle breeze was brushing away on people's bodies, making them feel extremely cold. That wind was so cold and it contained some blood chi. How was that possible? The crowd continued talking about various things. However, the leader looked surprised. He stood up and said, "No, there is somebody." The crowd in the meeting hall also sensed and smelt some blood chi at that moment. Tap, tap, tap. Some subtle sound spread in the air. It seemed like death was about to befall on them. Slowly, a black light appeared in the meeting hall. He slowly walked in. That black silhouette was extremely dark and looked ice-cold. He was holding a sword, a bloodthirsty sword from which blood was dripping. Lin Feng. The crowd started shaking, as if they had realized something. They knew Lin Feng. He was the champion of the great competition of Shueyu. Everybody had seen him. They all knew that Deshu Kong had been killed by Lin Feng and Shueyu. He hadn't come back to the Deshu clan. However, Lin Feng was appearing there. Lin Feng looked like a death god and it seemed like death was looking out for them. They raised their heads and saw two bloodshot eyes. Lin Feng's hand trembled and a terrifying sword chi enveloped them. A red light illuminated the meeting hall. That night was their judgment day. They were doomed. Chapter 737. Mother Master. Some wild beasts were running in the Black Wind Mountain. Every beast stayed in its own territory. The law of the jungle reigned. Going into the depths of the mountain chain would lead them to their death. In the depths of the mountain chain, there was a place covered with snow throughout the year. If human beings trespassed, they would have been knee-deep in the snow. However, that snow mantle didn't show any footprint. It looked perfectly pure. Human beings and beasts didn't go there. Not far from the snowy territory, a beast, more precisely a bull, was slowly walking. That beast was half human, half beast. That bull had been raised for hundreds of years. At that moment, half of the bull looked like a human being. One more step and the bull would become a human being. That bull looked at the snowy territory and walked next to some snow. He didn't penetrate into the snowy territory. One step on the snow, and he would penetrate into the deepest territory of the Black Wind Mountain chain. He didn't dare do so. He was just looking at the snow. He was looking at that snow in a respectful way but also with fear. No human being or beast who had ever entered had come back alive. The bull's grandfather had told him that. In other words, his grandfather had taught him that the snowy territory was the forbidden territory of the Black Wind Mountain chain. The bull had wanted to go there so many times, but each he remembered what his grandfather had told him. He had managed to control himself and hadn't stepped into that territory. The bull was calmly looking at that place. He was absorbing the best bestial chi of the region. He was sometimes gazing into the distance and trying to see what there was in the snowy region. He wanted to know what was lurking there. The bull could see hundreds of kilometers away, but there was only snow. At that moment he was looking at the deepest place of the territory. Then he saw a gigantic hole. It seemed that there was a beast there. However, it was snowing and the silhouette of the beast seemed to melt each time it snowed. The snow around that hole was whiter than the rest of the region. That gigantic hole was surrounded by ice sculptures representing beasts. They were all made of snow. Those sculptures were gigantic. Some of them looked like gigantic pandas while others looked like rocks. They were all gigantic. Even from very far they looked astonishing. It seemed like a sound was emerging out of that hole. A subtle sound. After that, the snowflakes suddenly stopped falling down and were immobile, strangely suspended in the air. The snow on the ground started moving. In other words, the snow sculptures started moving. Then some rumbling sound spread in the air. A terrifying chi started coagulating all around the air. Actually, it wasn't a hole, it was a gigantic ferocious wild beast. A real one. At that moment, a ferocious wild beast had moved. That gigantic beast was almost 20 meters long and about 5 or 6 meters high. Its fur was whiter than snow. Its eyes were dazzling. It was a beautiful beast. If it had been smaller, it would looked extremely cute and everybody would have loved it. Boom, boom, boom. Some sound spread in the air and the snow sculptures moved too. They weren't statues, they were real wild beasts. They were all gigantic wild beasts. Boom, boom, boom. Those statues all started walking. They looked proud and gigantic. They then shouted respectfully, "Mother Master." Even though they were beasts, they could speak like human beings. In the middle, the gigantic snowy white beast was extremely beautiful. It glanced around and looked at a rock and said, "Big rock, how long did I sleep?" "Mother Master, you've slept for 10 years, said the big rock while moving its wings in order to make the snow go away. It was being very respectful to the Mother Master. In the world of beasts there were very strict hierarchical rules. The weakest beasts were the slaves of the stronger ones. Weaker beasts always got humiliated or killed. 10 years. Such a long time, whispered the gigantic beast. The beast realized that the territory was entirely covered by snow. Suddenly, a terrifying oppressive energy spread in the air which made those beasts suffocate. Snow stopped falling. The bull who wasn't far away saw that and was stunned. Immediately after, the bull lowered his head and continued walking, faster this time. He finally understood what his grandfather had told him. That gigantic snow beast suddenly frowned as a terrifying bestial chi had made all those beasts suffocate. They kept quiet out of fear. "Where is the miss?" said the gigantic snow beast coldly. Those beasts all started shaking. "Big rock, speak." The big rock had the feeling he was going to collapse. He raised his head and saw two terrifying eyes. He had the feeling he couldn't breathe anymore. "Mother Master, the mist didn't listen to us. It's been a few years already she left alone. She left for the human territory a long time ago," said the big rock while shaking violently. The Mother Master wasn't as warm and gentle as the miss. She was strict and aggressive. Nobody could make her angry. When the gigantic snow beast heard the big rock, she looked furious. She glanced at the beasts and said, "I hope for your sake that nothing happened to her or you're all doomed." The fur of the gigantic snow beast moved and the snowflakes in the air turned into mirrors. "Ling Long, you don't know how vast the world is," said the snow beast in a solemn way. Immediately after, a holy light appeared around her. She stretched a toe and touched a mirror. The holy light was snowy white. In the mirror appeared many silhouettes and forms. In one of the mirrors a gorgeous woman appeared. She looked like a celestial being. If Lin Feng had been there, he would have been astonished. That girl was Meng Qing. That silhouette was moving extremely quickly. One breath was like a day in those mirrors. In the blink of an eye, a few years had passed in the mirrors. 10 years were passing in mere seconds. When the snow beast saw that Meng Qing had been attacked by some other animal and had turned into a beast again, an explosion sound spread in the air and the mirror broke apart. The snow beast looked glum. The other beasts had the feeling they were being strangled. They couldn't gulp down anymore. They were shaking insanely, they were doomed. The mother beast turned around and looked at those beasts in an ice-cold way. The gigantic snow beast gradually turned into a human being. She was a stunning middle-aged woman. She had a snowy white chong pao, but her eyes looked as ice-cold as before. Her chong pao flickered and a snow tower appeared on the ground. That tower immediately grew taller and turned into a gigantic snow cage. It had a big gate too. "Go inside," said the beautiful woman slowly. Those wild beasts were shaking violently while staring at the snow tower. They were terrified. "Do I have to send you an invitation letter?" threatened the woman coldly. A terrifyingly oppressive chi was still squeezing those beasts. They all groaned. They turned into human beings and slowly walked into the snow tower. Once they were all in, the huge gate closed itself. "I hope for you that the miss is fine. Otherwise you will never come out," said the gorgeous middle-aged woman rolling up her sleeves. Then the snow cage became small again and turned into a little speck of white grass. It then moved onto the body of the woman and looked like her hair. She then rose up in the air and looked around. She started moving towards some place in Shuiyu. Each of her steps were gigantic and she could travel across huge distances that way. The bull didn't dare raise his head until the monstrous bestial chi weakened. Only then did he look at the silhouette in the distance. Now he looked really terrified. Chapter 738. The Tianqi Empire in Michang. The Dashu clan had been exterminated in one night. They had all died, killed by one sword. A thick and dense blood was flowing all over their territory, and still contained the ice-cold chi which had caused it to flow. It seemed like it was never going to disperse. After Shengong came over, they immediately drew the conclusion that Lin Feng had been there. Even though he had turned into a demon, he had come and exterminated the Dashu clan. However, when the people sent by Shengong arrived in the territory of the Dashu clan, They couldn't find Lin Feng anymore. In the north part Michang, if one kept going far north, one had to cross some gigantic empires. For example, the East Sea Empire, the Jade Heaven Imperial family of the Jade Heaven Empire, etc. Amongst those empires, there was a particular one called the Tianqi Empire. The thing for which Tianqi was most famous for was its endless mountain chains which were covered with snow throughout the entire year. It never melted. Almost everywhere in the empire were snowy mountains. Besides, it kept snowing endlessly, so the atmosphere, throughout the year, was filled with snowflakes. Maybe that it was a coincidence, but Lin Feng brought Tang Yuyu and Xue Linglong to that place. Xue Linglong was excited when she saw all that snow. She immediately jumped off Lin Feng's shoulders and played in the snow. It seemed like she loved snow, it looked like her home. "It's so cold here," whispered Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng nodded and looked at Tang Yuyu. Her face was red because she was so cold. That snowy region was indeed very cold. Even though Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu had broken through to the very top of the Xianqi layer, they were still feeling cold. The temperature was terrifying there. However, Meng Qing didn't fear the cold. She was extremely happy, and Lin Feng shook his head. He didn't know why. "We have to cross Tianqi, and then we will arrive in the Gulong region, where the mysterious world is. I am convinced that crossing Tianqi is the best way to get there," said Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu nodded as a sign of agreement. Lin Feng had enemies from Jade Heaven and the East Sea Dragon Palace, so getting to the mysterious world via Tianqi was the best way for them to travel. It was quick and safe. The sound of their steps on the snow was the only sound. Lin Feng was looking around at the mountains. There were many huge snowy peaks. Surprisingly, there were some people practicing cultivation on them. Even though their bodies looked frozen and they were covered with snow, they weren't leaving the snowy region. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, a snowy mountain broke. A silhouette emerged out of the mountain and rose up in the air. Then that person shook their body and the snow fell off their body. They could see his face. "What a powerful qi," thought Lin Feng, staring at that person who looked quite young. That person also looked young and inexperienced. He was a young man. He jumped forwards onto another mountain and punched it. Suddenly, rumbling sounds spread in the air and that mountain broke too. Snow splashed everywhere in the sky. That young man didn't stop. He kept jumping and bombarding mountains with his fist. In a flash, a snow dragon started roaring in the distance and another mountain broke. Boom, boom, boom. The young man looked excited. He kept punching the mountains and breaking them. He then shouted furiously, "Stand up!" Those who were practicing cultivation woke up and looked at him. They looked at him puzzled. "Huang Fuchong, what do you want to do?" shouted someone furiously, making Lin Feng and the Tang Yuyu nervous. That person's name was extremely strange. His family name had two characters, Huang Fu, and his first name was composed of a single character, Chong. "Call me Dahai Chong, get used to it," said Huang Fuchong while smiling like an idiot. "Watch as Tianqi Xue and I go to the mysterious world together. Dahai Chong, you should give up. You cannot survive in Tianqi," said someone mockingly. After that, as if Huang Fuchong didn't care, he smiled and said, "Tianqi Xue will become my wife. You are overrating your own abilities. Keep on dreaming." All of those people were making fun of him. Tianqi Xue was going to become his wife? In the Tianqi Empire, everybody dreamt of getting married with the pure and holy woman Tianqi Xue. Could Huang Fuchong manage to do that? Even though they didn't admit it, they were all afraid of Huang Fuchong. He was extremely strong. That guy was not very intelligent, but he had monstrous natural abilities. Even if they joined hands, they couldn't defeat him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have wasted cultivation time to talk to him. They would have simply attacked him. You can make fun of me, that's fine. However, you must come with me to Tianqi and become my servants," said Huang Fuchong, smiling. They were surprised and shouted furiously, "In your dreams! It's better to be a leader of many people, more prestigious. I will get married with Tianqi Xue. If you don't come, I will beat you until you change your mind," said Huang Fuchong while shaking his fist. He was threatening them. Everybody pulled a long face. Even though Huang Fuchong was mentally confused, what he was saying at that moment weren't empty words. If they didn't go with him, he would crush them. "We can go, but as your friends, not as your slaves," said someone coldly. "All right, that's fine," said Huang Fuchong, nodding. "All right, we are friends. Those people instantly felt a bit better and gnashed their teeth. Huang Fuchong slowly turned around and looked at Lin Feng. He jumped forwards and landed on the ground. "Are you going to Tianqi?" asked Huang Fuchong. "Maybe," said Lin Feng, nodding. Those people were all strong, especially Huang Fuchong. He was young, and even though he looked insane, he had broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer. Besides, he had just said that he wanted to go to the mysterious world with Tianqi Shui. "Let's go together, let's be friends," said Huang Fuchong while smiling. He then added, "My name is Huang Fulong, but they like to call me Huang Fuchong. I think that De Hai Chong is better though, it's more appropriate." Lin Feng and Tang Yu remained silent. That guy was a real freak, but against all expectations he was extremely strong. "Is that your girl?" "She's extremely strong. She's broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer. However, she's not as strong as my wife, who has broken through to the very top of the 9th Xianqi layer. And on top of that, she's even more beautiful than her," said Huang Fulong while scratching his head and smiling like a simple-minded man. Lin Feng was speechless, but he wasn't the only one. All the others were speechless and had their eyes wide open. When had Tianqi Shui become his wife? That bastard was really shameless. "You said that, Tianqi Shui, and you were going to the mysterious world together, why?" asked Lin Feng to Huang Fulong. Even though he was talking big, people didn't hate him. He wasn't a bad person, he wasn't evil. However, in spite of his warm and friendly smile, Duan Wuya was the person that Lin Feng hated the most at that moment. "Tianqi is a holy land for us. In the Empire of Tianqi in a short time, the Tianqi Empire will dispatch some people to the mysterious world. They need to select several people to go there. Everybody can try. With my strength, it shouldn't be a problem being selected." When Lin Feng heard Huang Fulong, his eyes twinkled. In order to go to the mysterious world, one needed to be selected by a certain group of influence. One couldn't go by oneself. Instead of hypocritically accepting a compromise and going there from Shengong, he would have an opportunity through the Tianqi Empire. "By the way, what are your names?" thought Huang Fulong suddenly while scratching his head. He looked annoyed. "My name is Lin Feng." "Lin Feng, you are not from the Empire of Tianqi. If you want to go to the mysterious world, you should come with me to Tianqi. That's the best way," said Huang Fulong. Chapter 739. Missionaries. Lin Feng looked back at Huang Fulong and asked, "Why is Tianqi the best place to go if I want to traverse the mysterious world?" "Lin Feng, it seems like you don't understand the balance of power amongst the different empires," said Huang Fulong, smiling. "In the Ganyu region, there are only empires of middle quality. Their territories also prove how strong they are. The Necropolis, the Jade Heaven Empire, the EC Empire, and our empire Tianqi are all in the Ganyu region. But our empire Tianqi is the strongest one." He sounded proud. Lin Feng looked at the other people and saw that they looked solemn and respectful, as well as proud like heroes. Lin Feng was surprised. "However, we are not the strongest ones because we are stronger than the others. There is only one thing that makes us stronger, and that is our unity," said Huang Fulong, sounding like he was in a good mood. He was speaking simply and honestly. 2,000 years ago, Tianqi was the weakest empire of middle quality. We were humiliated by others. Then, the holy place Tianqi enabled the entire empire to become extremely strong. The government of Tianqi is not authoritarian and doesn't encourage stealing or such things. It is an empire filled with spirituality and beliefs. People who believe can go to the mysterious world. Tianqi for them is a religion or a spirituality, a way of life. This belief makes them extremely strong. Tianqi doesn't put pressure on people, but they encourage faith. They think faith can make cultivators become stronger. For example, the other empires will take the precious items gathered by the people they send to the mysterious world. Tianqi won't. People who go there can pick up items and keep them for themselves. They don't need to give anything to Tianqi and Tianqi. People can even receive some guidance on how to use the objects they've gathered. Moral values, principles, and faith are the things which have made us sustain for 2,000 years. Nobody would dare violate those principles, otherwise Tianqi would kill them. Besides, I believe that people who come out of the mysterious world with precious objects that they can't use will give them to Tianqi, and will settle in Tianqi. because they will receive instructions on how to use them. Practicing cultivation in Tianqi is wonderful, but one shouldn't be arrogant about it. Tianqi is not a group of influence, it is like a big and powerful family. Tianqi doesn't want to dazzle. It wants to be a holy place. A place where cultivation is a spirituality, explained Huang Fulong slowly. His hand was on his chest while he was talking. He looked solemn and serious. Tianqi wanted to be a holy place. Holy Tianqi makes their cultivators turn into cultivation missionaries, said the others while putting their right hands on their hearts and looking at the sky. They also sounded extremely solemn and respectful. Lin Feng initially doubted about what Huang Fulong was saying, but when he saw how the others reacted, his doubts disappeared. He had the impression that the empire was a monstrously powerful family, just like Huang Fulong had said. Tianqi wasn't a group of influence, it didn't want to oppress people and dazzle. It wanted to create cultivation missionaries. People were not specks of grass, they were sentient beings with feeling and emotions. They all had a sense of belonging here. Because Tianqi wasn't a group of influence, it wasn't going to hurt or put pressure on people. They even helped people become stronger without any requirement. Receiving people and helping them was a pleasure for them. Being able to make people adhere to such principles and maintaining such a system sustained for 2,000 years was incredible. Tianqi had to be a great and powerful empire with such principles. Those principles reminded Lin Feng of democratic countries in his previous life. In democratic countries, the government didn't oppress its people. On the contrary, it helped its people, and those people were the rulers of their own country. Just like the Tianqi Empire helped its people become stronger cultivators, democratic countries helped their people become richer. As expected, such countries where the people ruled over their own country were stronger. Lin Feng, the Tianqi Empire welcomes everybody. If you want to become a citizen of Tianqi, and go to the mysterious world with the status of citizen of Tianqi, you can. No matter what precious treasures you obtain there, the empire will not try to steal them from you. Of course, one of our laws is that you shouldn't betray the nation, otherwise the empire will kill you, said Huang Fulong. Tianqi had its own rules. Lin Feng smiled and said slowly, "It mustn't be easy to become a citizen of Tianqi. Let's go together first and then you will introduce me to your wife." Huang Fulong smiled when he heard Lin Feng. He didn't look solemn and serious as he had a moment before. He then said, "All right, let's go to Tianqi and see the jury who will choose its candidates for the mysterious world. Now, I'm afraid we're not the only geniuses willing to go there. There are millions of other people who have the same desire. Let's go. Everybody, let's go and see my wife Tianqi Shui," said Huang Fulong shamelessly. However, Lin Feng had the impression that even though Huang Fulong's friends were gnashing their teeth, they weren't bad people and meant him no harm. Even though they had heard Huang Fulong's fantasies many times, they had really improved their cultivation level thanks to him. He wasn't a bad person, they couldn't hate him. All those people together, including Tang Yu and Lin Feng, made 8. Huang Fulong had broken through to the 8th Xianqi layer and the others had broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer. If their cultivation had been lower, they wouldn't have been able to practice cultivation in the snowy mountains. They would have froze to death. Shui Linglong stopped playing in the snow and jumped back into Lin Feng's arms. Her body was covered with snow. She looked even more beautiful in a snowy landscape. The others were surprised. "What an adorable and beautiful little creature. What beast is that?" asked Huang Fulong curiously. "She's my wife," said Lin Feng indifferently. Huang Fulong was stupefied. Lin Feng's wife. It seems like my wife really is more beautiful," said Huang Fulong while smiling like a moron, yet sounding proud. "Not necessarily," said Lin Feng while glancing back at him. Lin Feng didn't believe that any woman could be more beautiful than Meng Qing. "Your wife is a Tian-level beast. Even if she turns into a human being, I still don't think that she will be more beautiful than my wife. Tianqi Shui is a pure and holy woman. She is the most beautiful woman of the empire," said Huang Fulong with sparkling eyes. The 5 others gnashed their teeth again when they heard him. They wanted to punch him. Shameless. That guy was too shameless. How dare he tarnish Tianqi Shui's name? Lin Feng was surprised. Even though that guy wasn't evil or mean, he was smart. He had noticed that Meng Qing was a Tian-level beast. We will see when we meet Tianqi Shui, said Lin Feng while smiling. It seemed like he was verbally battling with Huang Fulong. He didn't believe that any woman could be more beautiful than Meng Qing, including Tianqi Shui. The 8 of them traveled through the mountains very quickly, and then left the unpopulated snowy mountains. However, even though there were no mountains, there was still lots of snow. It seemed like people in Tianqi had to love snow. Lin Feng was freezing. There were probably many snow cultivators in the empire of Tianqi. Those 8 people weren't the only ones on that road. Many other people were rushing to Tianqi, especially those who had amazing natural abilities. They all wanted to go to the mysterious world. They all wanted to see incredibly strong senior cultivators as well as the beautiful, pure and holy Tianqi Shui. Lin Feng heard other people pronounce that woman's name. And everybody was talking about Tianqi in a respectful way. Lin Feng was even more curious to see what kind of place Tianqi was. What kind of place could make the inhabitants of an empire feel so joyful? How was that sense of belonging created? Besides, there was the beautiful woman of Tianqi who could make everybody fall in love with her. They walked for 6 days when Lin Feng discovered a place covered with ice and snow. That place was the biggest city of the country. In the distance, there was a gigantic mountain surrounded by a mysterious qi. It seemed like that mountain could reach the clouds. Lin Feng, we arrived. That is Tianqi over there, said Huang Fulong, pointing at the mountain covered with snow. He looked extremely excited. Chapter 740. Tianqi Shui. Lin Feng looked at the snowy mountain in the distance. It was a gigantic block of ice that seemed to have the earth and sky frozen all around it. The most surprising thing was how many people had gathered around the mountain surrounded by fog. Tianqi, whispered Lin Feng. At first glance you would know that this place had to be Tianqi City. The 8 of them continued running forwards until they arrived at the foot of the mountain. Just like in the rest of the empire, it was still snowing. But that place didn't look dreary and desolate. It looked bustling and lively. There were many people on the gigantic field around the mountain. There were many pavilions too, under which people seemed to be using brushes to write things. Some people were walking to those pavilions and talking to those who were writing. It seemed like those writers were noting down people's name on jade plates. As expected, they are registering for the application process, thought some people. The application process was different in Tianqi than any other countries. They would choose people from this singular place. Only people from the entire empire could apply for the exam. Even though the process was extremely complicated, it was also very fair and equitable. With such a system, no genius was going to be forgotten. After all, there were extraordinary geniuses everywhere in the empire. The fact that the country handled affairs in a fair and equitable way made it very strong. Finally, we are going to see Tianqi Shui, said Huang Fulong, smiling. He looked back at Lin Feng and said, okay, let's go and register. Lin Feng nodded. He obviously wouldn't refuse. If the Tianqi Empire ran the way Huang Fulong had described it, Lin Feng was willing to go to the mysterious world as a citizen of Tianqi. They all walked towards a pavilion. An old man raised his head and looked at them. He then smiled indifferently and said, not bad, young people, you all have a chance to be selected. I will get married with Tianqi Shui, said Huang Fulong while scratching his head. The old man was stupefied. He raised his head and looked at Huang Fulong in a strange way. But then he immediately smiled and said, Tianqi Shui has broken through to the very top of the 9th Xianqi layer. Many people want to be married with her. You have to make great efforts and become even stronger if you want her to become your wife. The old man didn't get angry when he heard Huang Fulong. Instead, he encouraged him. Encouragement was a part of the spirituality of Tianqi. Come, write your name, said the old man while putting a jade stone in front of them. Huang Fulong wrote his name and surprisingly, his name immediately disappeared. Huang Fulong, I hope that you will succeed, said the old man while smiling. He then walked towards Lin Feng and said, you are not from Tianqi? Indeed, I am not. I come from a very small country, said Lin Feng while nodding. No problem, write your name, but keep in mind that if you go to the mysterious world as a citizen of Tianqi, then you must be willing to become one. In the future, if you do anything that tarnishes the image of our empire, The consequences will be serious," said the old man patiently. He didn't sound aggressive or threatening at all though. He was just explaining things clearly. "I understand," said Lin Feng, smiling. He then wrote his name on a jade stone and moved back. The old man smiled and shook his head. Lin Feng had great natural abilities but looked a bit cold. He was smiling but didn't seem as easy and approachable. It seemed like Lin Feng had gone through many hardships. His heart was filled with coldness. Immediately after, the 5 others also wrote their names, but Tang Yu seemed a bit hesitant. She wasn't like Lin Feng, she was from Dragon Mountain. But Dragon Mountain wasn't powerful enough to send people to the mysterious world. Therefore, what she could do was join as a member of Shengong. If she joined as a citizen of Tianqi, wouldn't it make things complicated? "You," said Lin Feng, shaking his head. Tang Yu looked at Lin Feng and smiled. "Junimo Shi and his father won't be angry at me." Then she immediately wrote her name on a jade stone. "Alright, you can look around now. You can also climb the mountain and look around up there. In 3 days the test will start. You can come back here then," said the old man. They all nodded and left. "We can climb the mountain?" said Lin Feng, surprised. It seemed like many people were actually going to climb the mountain. They all looked respectful and solemn. "Of course we can. Tianqi is a holy place in the Tianqi Empire. Everybody is free. For us, cultivation is a spiritual path. Tianqi doesn't forbid people from doing what is good for themselves. They don't want to set limitations which could influence people's cultivation," replied Huang Fulong. He then smiled, looking as simple-minded as before, and said, "Let's go to the snowy mountain and see. Maybe we will meet Tianqi Shui." Lin Feng didn't refuse. The 8 of them walked towards the crowd in front of them, and they all started walking on a path that was covered with snow. They began climbing up the mountain. Nobody was in the air. Lin Feng could see that the 5 people behind him looked solemn and serious. It seemed like they had forgotten the material world around them, just like Huang Fulong had explained. They were in a holy place, they were like pilgrims. For them, Tianqi City was a holy place. However, that holy place wasn't flat, it was a gigantic mountain that pilgrims had to climb. They were even walking slowly on purpose, but it took only a few hours to reach the top. That place was filled with snow, unsurprisingly. There were many white buildings. Lin Feng looked down and his chest started bouncing. In front of him was a river of ice and snow, as well as fog. That ice-cold fog looked like an illusion. In the illusion, the atmosphere kept turning into ice. The fog made the atmosphere look even more beautiful. "Tianqi Shui. Look quickly. It's Tianqi Shui," said someone at that moment, sounding excited. The entire crowd looked excited and gazed into the distance. Huang Fulong was the one who turned around the fastest. In a flash, he looked at the very top of the mountain where there was a silhouette. That person was as white as snow and she was gazing into the distance. She looked calm and serene, she was as beautiful as snow. The only thing that wasn't white on her body was her black hair on which snowflakes were resting. How beautiful! Tianqi Shui is so beautiful and she has broken through to the very top of the 9th Xianqi layer. She's so gorgeous, thought some people in the crowd while looking at that snowy white silhouette. They all looked like they worshipped her. Tianqi Shui was the holy woman of Tianqi. She was the woman of many men's dreams. "Tianqi Shui, you're mine," said a voice which dashed to the skies. The crowd was astonished and turned around. Lin Feng was speechless, he backed off a few steps just like the others. Many people looked excited. Nobody was furious, they were all just watching Huang Fulong and Tianqi Shui. Bastard! Shameless guy! Why is he saying that? He thinks too highly of himself. Some people were gnashing their teeth. However, Huang Fulong ignored them. He was just staring at Tianqi Shui while clenching his fists. He was determined to get her and be married to her. Tianqi Shui lowered her head when she heard him. The crowd was astonished, looking nervous. Tianqi Shui just looked back at Huang Fulong. She glanced at him, looking emotionless. Then she turned around and disappeared from the people's field of vision. What an arrogant and elegant woman, thought Tang Yu. She was a woman, she could recognize when other women were arrogant, even if she had just glanced at her for a second. "Is your wife as beautiful as her?" asked Tang Yu while looking at Shui Linglong in Lin Feng's arms. Lin Feng had turned into a demon for her, so Tang Yu Yu was curious to know what kind of woman could make Lin Feng go insane. Of course, even more, said Lin Feng with a gentle and warm smile. He sounded absolutely certain. Chapter 741. The top of the mountain Tianqi Shui was very beautiful. She looked as pure as snow, absolutely free from any sort of pollution. Her face looked prettier than the 10,000 things of creation. However, Meng Qing looked purer and holier than her, at least in Lin Feng's heart. If Tianqi Shui was the snow fairy, then Meng Qing was the snow goddess. Tang Yuyu was surprised when she saw how certain Lin Feng sounded. In her eyes you could tell that she envied Shui Linglong. Lin Feng really loved her. Shui Linglong cuddled with Lin Feng and put her claws on his face in a gentle way. Her breathtaking eyes showed everyone that she was smiling. Lin Feng pet Shui Linglong's head and smiled in a warmly. Lin Feng only smiled in such a resplendent way when he was looking at Shui Linglong. Most of the time he had forced himself to smile, especially since he had turned into a demon. The evil sword was still in his body, and he was still facing some consequences. It had modified his personality. Coldness had invaded his soul. That was what the old man in the pavilion at the foot of the mountain had noticed, just how cold Lin Feng was. You are a fairy fox, Meng Qing, that's why you love snow so much. I will bring you to the top of the mountain, said Lin Feng using telepathy to talk to Meng Qing. He rose up in the air and moved towards the cloud which hid the top of the mountain. It seemed like the peak of the mountain was a cloud from where they stood. It was the place where Tianqi Shui had appeared a moment before. Huh. Some people frowned. What was Lin Feng doing? Many people pulled a long face. Was Lin Feng trying to get closer to Tianqi Shui? How shameless and audacious. Stop! Shouted an extremely loud voice at that moment. People who were in love with Tianqi Shui were numerous. Huang Fulong had drawn many people's attention, and now Lin Feng was moving up to the top of the mountain. Did he want to make friends with their goddess? They couldn't let him. A silhouette suddenly appeared next to Lin Feng, passed in front of him. Suddenly a hand bombarded the atmosphere in his direction. It contained some terrifying ice chi. Lin Feng would be projected backwards if that hand hit him. Lin Feng turned his hand, glanced at that person coldly. Lin Feng's eyes looked extremely sharp. Surprisingly, that person had the feeling that he was suffocating, as if a gigantic blade had been lacerating his heart. His chest suddenly felt very cold. Get lost, shouted Lin Feng. His voice made the atmosphere shake. Lin Feng raised his hand which had turned black. It was jet black and contained some evil and deadly chi. It looked like it could annihilate everything. Boom boom boom. The snow punch immediately broke. The terrifying pitch-black light had destroyed it, and then crashed onto the opponent's body. That person couldn't block it, his chest was pounding. He was suddenly shaking from head to foot. Boom! The black hand hit his body and blood splashed onto the whiteness of the mountain. That person crashed onto the ground. His face looked hideous. That man hadn't attacked Lin Feng only because he was jealous. He also wanted to show to everyone how strong he was. If his attack had been powerful enough, he could have drawn Tianqi Shui's attention. However, what everybody saw was him getting dominated by Lin Feng, and now shaking from head to foot. How humiliating! He watched as Lin Feng rose up in the air. He had already landed on the top of the mountain. Huh! A gentle voice spread in the air. Tianqi Shui was surprised. She slowly turned around and looked at Lin Feng frowning. But soon enough she looked normal again. What are you doing here? Asked Tianqi Shui surprised. She then added, if it's because of me you can go back. She sounded calm and serene. However, Lin Feng understood why she was so arrogant. She had all the reasons in the world to be. She was really extremely beautiful. All the men were falling in love with her. Besides, she had terrifying natural abilities. Her chi was extraordinary. Lin Feng glanced at Tianqi Shui. She looked calm and serene. He then looked somewhere else and sat down cross-legged at the top of the mountain. He put Shui Linglong on his lap and gazed into the distance. The mountains in the horizon looked tiny. Tianqi Shui was surprised. Lin Feng had just glanced at her for a second. Nobody had ever been remained so cold when looking at her. His face didn't even change for a microsecond. He had looked at her as if he had looked at an ordinary person. Besides, she had talked to him but he had ignored her. Tianqi Shui was stupefied. She had never been ignored by a man. She was so proud, but that cold young man was even prouder. Initially, she wanted to leave, but now she was standing there looking at him. "Who can get married with you?" said Lin Feng suddenly. Tianqi Shui was surprised. Who was that guy? A moment before he didn't care about her. Then he had ignored her. And now he asked such a straightforward question. "You have no chance," said Tianqi Shui, as if she had wanted to get her revenge. Lin Feng's indifference had made her upset. She had a calm temperament, otherwise she would have left. "Those who want to marry me must be stronger than me. You are still very far from being as strong as me," said Tianqi Shui in an arrogant way. "Is it that easy? Anyone who is stronger than you can marry you?" said Lin Feng indifferently. He turned his head back around and glanced at her. He looked so indifferent and unperturbed that it made Tianqi Shui feel uncomfortable. He had come so close to her and was so unperturbed. Lin Feng had managed to make her feel a bit upset. "Easy?" asked Tianqi Shui while smiling coldly. "I am 18 now. The man who will get married with me must be 2 years older than me. Is that still very easy?" asked Tianqi Shui. She had been raised by extremely strong cultivators of the empire. She was 18 and had already broken through to the very top of the Xianqi layer. She wanted to get married with a man who was at least 20 years old and who could defeat her. That was simple. So said Lin Feng. For Lin Feng, that wasn't difficult. However, Huang Fulong had only broken through to the very top of the 8th Xianqi layer and still needed to make efforts. "Do you mean that you are interested in me?" asked Tianqi Shui, looking less upset. Lin Feng was more arrogant than her. He sounded very self-confident too. He must be as arrogant as she was. Lin Feng glanced at Tianqi Shui again. Her clothes were as white as snow and she was indeed very beautiful. But the fact that she was starting to lose her temper had ruined everything. She was a pure and holy woman in her empire. She was almost worshipped as a goddess. But because of Lin Feng, she was just a talented 18-year-old girl, nothing more. She was far from being able to compete with Meng Qing in every aspect. "I am not interested in you. I just asked you as a friend," said Lin Feng, turning his head back to Shui Linglong and smiling. "I am not interested in you." Lin Feng's words were resonating in Tianqi Shui's head. She was gnashing her teeth. Lin Feng was despising her. "You are going to sit the test to go to the mysterious world. We will definitely have a fight then. I am curious to see what makes you feel so confident," said Tianqi Shui. She then turned around and left abruptly. She wanted to be as far away from Lin Feng as possible. Lin Feng felt good. He had come there with Meng Qing to enjoy the sight. It was a great feeling. In Lin Feng's eyes, the sight and the landscape were beautiful, not Tianqi Shui. He remained sitting there with Meng Qing at the top of a mountain. They stayed there for 3 days as time passed very quickly. The test was about to start. Chapter 742. A furious sharp-sword Lin Feng jumped forwards and started falling down the mountain. Tang Yuyu was waiting for him farther down the mountain. She had been waiting for him there the whole time. The crowd at the top of the mountain started descending slowly. The exam to go to the mysterious world was about to start. It was said that 7 people were going to be chosen under the name of Tianqi, of course. Nobody knew why people were going to be sent there. Lin Feng hadn't arrived at the top of the mountain yet, but he could already see a sea of people. However, the crowd was making a perfect circle which didn't look chaotic at all. Those people were gathering around the pavilions and leaving enough space between them and the buildings. Nobody was getting too close. That was a form of respect for the empire and also vis-a-vis the old men in the pavilions. So many strong cultivators, thought Tang Yuyu, stupefied, even sighing. Empires of medium quality were much stronger than empires of lower quality. There was a huge difference. In empires of lower quality, young people of the Xianqi layer were rare and young people of the Tianqi layer were even rarer. However, in empires of middle quality, young people of the Xianqi layer were numerous and young people who had broken through to the Tianqi layer weren't that rare. Especially in empires such as Tianqi, which were extremely strong. The old men in the pavilions had probably all broken through to the Tianqi layer. They looked in perfect harmony with the sky and the earth. In one of the pavilions, an old man looked at the sun and then stood up slowly. He walked towards the center of the snowy field, looked at the sea of people and put his right hand on his heart while saying in a solemn and respectful way, "The Tianqi Empire has so many geniuses who are enthusiastic and serious. It is an honor for the empire to have such citizens. I would like to thank you for being citizens of our empire. We are proud of you." The old man was looking at the crowd when he spoke, and they had gone absolutely silent. Each and every single person had their right hand on their chest and looked solemn and respectful. They were the proud of their empire. First, I would like to tell you more about the mysterious world. It is a place filled with treasures. However, you all have to understand that if there are treasures, it also means that there are dangers. The more treasures there are in a place, the more dangers there are as well. This time there will be no exception. We expect that 90% of you will die there. The crowd remained silent when listening to him. The old man was right. Great treasures were usually associated with great danger. In order to obtain precious items, one had to take risks. Those treasures weren't free or easy to obtain. Besides, we citizens of the Tianqi Empire are not the only ones to send people there. In the entire Ganyu region, there are empires of middle quality, and there are 42 groups of influence which are similarly strong. So many empires and groups of influence will send people to the mysterious world. The number of geniuses, as you can imagine, will be incredible. What a terrifying number. Every great influential group will not miss that opportunity. They all wanted to send their people to the mysterious world. Now everybody understood how dangerous the experience was going to be. Every young genius is valuable to our empire. In order to avoid unnecessary losses, we have decided to send 8 young geniuses to the mysterious world. Those who will go there will obtain some great treasures as long as they don't die there. But the dangers must be clear to you. Only 8 people were going to be chosen by the Tianqi Empire. Therefore, we have decided to exclude people whose level is of or under the 7th Xianqi layer. For those of you who this concerns, you have to give up this time. Those who will go to the mysterious world will be extremely strong and powerful. It will be extremely dangerous. It will also be very useful for those who are about to break through to the Tianqi layer. Going there will be very beneficial to you especially, said the old man. Those who had broken through to the 7th Xianqi layer and under were smiling wryly. They perfectly understood that they were too weak to go there. They would immediately get killed if they went to the mysterious world. They would never obtain great treasures. Of course, it is our philosophy in Tianqi to respect brave people and heroes. If some of you really want to try, we will give you a chance and let you try to sit the test. Now, those who have registered for the test can rise up in the air, said the old man while moving backwards and jumping onto a huge stone. Lin Feng also rose up in the air. He glanced around and was speechless. There were extremely few people of the 7th and 8th Xianqi layer. However, there were about 1,000 people who had broken through to the 9th Xianqi layer. How terrifying! So that was an empire of middle quality. I will definitely enter the mysterious world and get married with Tianqi Shui, said Huang Fulong looking determined. Lin Feng smiled wryly. That guy really wanted to get married with Tianqi Shui. Of course, Lin Feng was also clenching his fists. He really wanted to go to the mysterious world. There would be a multitude of opportunities there. Even though it was going to be dangerous, Lin Feng didn't care. Nothing could affect his determination and willpower. Lin Feng was ready to take risks to become stronger. Those who used to reign over Shui Yu wanted to kill him as well as his friends and family members. Those who were supporting them had to die as well. Lin Feng was still too weak to protect the people he loved. He needed to become a Zun cultivator. Since Shengong had Zun cultivators, Jade Heaven and the Sea East Dragon Palace probably had some too. Raise your head and look at Tianqi, said the old man. Everybody raised their heads and looked up at Tianqi. The first round is as such. When I shout start, you will all run towards Tianqi and the first 100 to arrive will be selected to move on to the second round, said the old man. People's eyes were twinkling. That was a quick way to select the first candidates as quickly as possible. Strong cultivators had to be really fast, so they needed good agility techniques. Ready, said the old man. Everybody started releasing pure qi. They were getting ready to move up in the air and towards Tianqi go, said the old man. In a flash, more than 1,000 people rose up in the air and shot out towards the mountain. Boom! Pure qi was rolling in the air. Everybody had released pure qi at the same time. It was incredible. The entire atmosphere was filled with it. 1,000 dream shadows, said Tang Yuyu. Many clones appeared and they all moved up in the air in every direction. Huang Fulong also jumped in the air and released some terrifying snow energy while shouting, "Nobody get near me!" In a flash, the atmosphere around him froze. Some people were shouting furiously, breaking the ice and trying to continue moving forwards, but some of them had already lost too much time. Lin Feng was moving forwards like a sharp sword. He was releasing an ice-cold qi which was whistling in the air. Nobody was weak there, so Lin Feng couldn't afford being careless. "Get lost!" shouted some people when they saw how strong Lin Feng was. Some of them were trying to punch him with their ice and snow punches. "Die!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. He released some terrifying killer qi which dashed to the skies. With a flash, the people around him had the impression that their souls were frozen. That killer qi was ice-cold and terrifying. "Everybody move away!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. Nobody tried to stop him anymore. Those who dared offend him would get hurt by his infinite sword qi, which was like a myriad of sharp swords. Some people were pulling a long face. What a bastard! His sword intent was really frightening. Chapter 743. Fortune. Lin Feng was releasing some terrifying sword qi and preventing the people around him from moving forwards. But he was also being influenced by other people's energies. For those very strong cultivators, it wasn't difficult to take advantage of a few seconds and pass in front of him. There were people in every direction. Lin Feng looked at the first ones. Even though Lin Feng wasn't the first one, he wasn't worried. He remained clear-headed and continued moving forwards. He was trying to keep the situation under control. Tianqi was already in his field of vision and quite close. Those who were in front of him needed 2 mouthfuls of air before they would arrive. Hopla! A subtle sound spread in the air, and some people started feeling like they were suffocating as they crossed the fog. The sound of their bodies freezing was spreading in the air. Some people instantly turned into ice statues. "Oh no!" thought those who hadn't reached the fog yet. Some of them raised their hands, but then their hands instantly started freezing, and then their entire body. That ice fog was terrifying. It could freeze people in a flash. "Sword," said Lin Feng. His sword qi rolled in the air and surrounded his body. However, a second later his sword qi froze all around him and the atmosphere became extremely calm. It was as if he had ended up in a bubble. The ice energy of Tianqi is scary, thought some people on the ground while watching the candidates. The fog qi of Tianqi became calm again. A silhouette who looked like a celestial being slowly descending from the sky and landed on Tianqi. That person was extremely beautiful. Her clothes were white like snow. Some people stopped breathing when they saw her. They looked at her as if she had been their goddess. It was the pure and holy woman of Tianqi, Tianqi Shui. How beautiful! She was even more beautiful than they had imagined when seeing her portraits. Kacha kacha! The sound of breaking ice was spreading in the air. Those who were extremely strong had managed to break the ice which had frozen their body, and continued moving forwards. With 3 mouthfuls of air they would arrived at the top. They could already see Tianqi Shui's face. "Avalanche," said Tianqi Su, looking glum. In a flash, an infinite quantity of snow energy spread in the air. It was snow intent. Boom boom boom. The earth and sky started shaking as a terrifying number of snowballs started falling down from the sky. It seemed like an iceberg was breaking apart and falling onto the crowd. Boom boom. Someone was still trying to break the ice around their body when they were hit by the frozen snowballs. They fell back down and didn't try to come back up. The exam is dangerous. This shows candidates how dangerous it could be in the mysterious world, thought some people in the crowd. That was only the first round of the exam. It also held the purpose of showing weaker cultivators if they had strength needed. Speed wasn't enough, they also had to be very strong to move on. Break. Kacha. Lin Feng broke the ice around him and saw a few silhouettes in the sky. Lin Feng was moving forwards at full speed and using the snowballs to jump and bounce through them. Boom! An avalanche moved towards Lin Feng, which made him groan coldly. Some whistling sounds spread in the air again as the snowballs immediately were broken. Huh! Tian Qixue was surprised when she saw Lin Feng. But then she suddenly looked excited. She said again, avalanche. Boom boom boom. The snow intent moved towards Lin Feng again. Lin Feng was upset. Tian Qixue was voluntarily attacking him. Lin Feng could see that some people were passing in front of him again. He wouldn't make it to the next round if he was attacked again. Wind rise, said Lin Feng. Some incredible whistling sounds spread in the air. He was surrounded by a hurricane which contained some terrifying wind intent. 9 skies, said Lin Feng as he disappeared from his original position just like the wind. Tian Qixue had the impression that she was looking at an illusion. Lin Feng was releasing some terrifying sword qi in front of his body which made Tian Qixue's face change. She immediately moved backwards. That sword intent was aimed at where she was a second before. Then she saw a silhouette slowly move towards her. It was Lin Feng. Tian Qixue was staring at him coldly. Lin Feng had surprisingly dared use sword qi to make her move back. How impudent. Some silhouettes landed at the top of Tian Qi and saw Tian Qixue move back because of Lin Feng. Who was that person? He was very audacious and brave. He surprisingly dared attack the holy and pure woman of Tian Qi. How insolent. Couldn't he show pity and tenderness for women? Some people jumped forwards and surrounded Lin Feng, as if they had been trying to protect their beloved woman. Lin Feng glanced at them coldly. Lin Feng was already upset because of what happened the last time she disrespected him, and now she was attacking him by surprise. Lin Feng had to get his revenge. Tian Qixue was a goddess in many people's eyes. She was the woman of many men's dreams, but not Lin Feng's. You want to die, said someone to Lin Feng. That person was threatening him. Lin Feng had broken through to the 8 Qianqi layer, but that person had broken through to the very top of the 8 Qianqi layer. Tian Qixue didn't have to show him any respect. Even if you want to die, it's not your turn. Let me first crush someone else and then I will find you, said Lin Feng. People were astonished. Lin Feng was extremely aggressive and arrogant. Misunderstanding, said a trembling voice. Huang Fulong arrived in the middle of the crowd and said, Lin Feng, we are friends, you have to respect my future wife, said Huang Fulong. Then, he looked at Tian Qixue and said with a silly smile, you are my family now. The crowd was astonished while they stared at Huang Fulong. What a shameless bastard. Tian Qixue was his future wife. Tian Qixue was speechless as well. She looked back at him and said coldly, who's your future wife? He. Huang Fulong scratched his head in a shy way and said, sooner or later, you will be my wife. You, said Tian Qixue while looking at him. Huang Fulong and Lin Feng were really detestable. Little Xue, it's enough, said a voice. It was the old man who was taking care of the organization and the exam. He looked at the candidates and said, everybody use your intuition. There are only 100 people who will be selected. The others can leave without me having to tell them anything. People looked at the old man and didn't argue. They only looked at Lin Feng and Huang Fulong. They were going to remember those faces. Looking dispirited and depressed, they all left Tianqi. They could easily guess their own ranking with their strength. Then there were only 100 people at the top of the mountain. Of course, without counting Tian Qixue. The old man looked at those on the top of Tianqi and said, the second round is extremely easy. The last 8 people left at the top of the mountain will be the 8 people selected to go to the mysterious world, said the old man with a smile of encouragement on his face. He even glanced at Lin Feng and Huang Fulong. Those two were extremely talented, but now they were alone. They had offended so many people. That round was going to teach them a lesson. Those who were very strong had to stay discreet and not display their strength too early. They had to understand that principle, which would also be applicable in the mysterious world. Chapter 744. A sword in the middle of heroes. Lin Feng knew that he had to remain discreet. He had also kept in mind what Mr. Xiao had told him. Lin Feng started smiling resplendently again. However, his smile had disappeared again. He was still influenced by the evil swords. He was still relying on that stone plate to constrict the power of the evil sword. Even with the stone plate, it was impossible to remain absolutely unaffected by it. With his ice-cold chi, people found it difficult to make friends with him. On the day he had started turning into a demon, he had suffered a lot. From that moment on, two paths had appeared in front of him. The first path was to submit himself to darkness and evil, to turn into a demon. He could become a real killer and become monstrously strong and powerful. Everybody would fear him. The second path was to start a new life. It would be a new beginning, just like a newborn. Lin Feng wasn't thinking about those things now though. The old man had said only the last 8 people would be able to go to the mysterious world. The 9th and the 10th one would be eliminated. Tianqi Shui was also in the middle of the crowd. That round was going to be a collective massacre for some people. A great deal of them would be eliminated. The most annoying thing was what had just happened between Tianqi Shui and Lin Feng wasn't over. Many people were looking at Lin Feng with certain intentions. Tang Yu moved towards Lin Feng. With her 1,000 dream shadows, she had managed to move on to the second round as well. Everybody, I don't know who that person is, but he dared attack Tianqi Shui. I suggest that we eliminate him first. We don't want him on the top of the mountain. What do you all think? Said someone while pointing at Lin Feng. He hadn't immediately attacked Lin Feng because he didn't want to be attacked by surprise by the others. We should take him out too, he's extremely impolite, said someone else while pointing at Huang Fulong. The crowd nodded. Those 2 people had to be eliminated first. But who would do it? The crowd was staring at them. They wanted to attack but nobody did. They were scared of being defeated by Lin Feng and Huang Fulong, or they were scared of being attacked by others while attacking those 2. I will take care of him first, but you must promise to attack me only afterwards, said the someone at the top of the Shenqi layer who had gotten angry with Lin Feng a moment before. His eyebrows were white like snow. Okay, no problem. We swear in front of the goddess that we will not attack you before you move back to your initial position. If anyone dares violate that rule, we will deal with them altogether, said someone else. Indeed, we all agree. If anyone dares attack you by surprise, we will deal with that shameless bastard, said someone else while nodding. Tianqi Shui was there, so they had to show how virtuous they were. They wouldn't dare tarnish their own reputation. That cultivator of the 8th Shenqi layer could deal with Lin Feng without worrying of a surprise attack. Alright, I will deal with him. Nobody can attack me, said someone else while pointing at Huang Fulong, who wasn't far from Lin Feng. Both of them had to be eliminated. No problem, same goes for him, said the crowd in unison. They all nodded. Then that person turned his head and looked at Huang Fulong coldly. I'm going first, said that person coldly. He threw himself at Huang Fulong and released a terrifying ice energy. Come, shouted Huang Fulong fearlessly. He was welcoming the enemy. He raised his right hand and a terrifying vortex appeared in it. A terrifying savage chi appeared in his hand and rose up in the air. Get lost. Boom! Huang Fulong shouted furiously as his fists collided and emitted some rumbling sounds. His savage energy bombarded the atmosphere. The enemy's ice punch was frozen and his own ice energy moved backwards. Then that person turned into an ice statue and flew away in the horizon. He crashed at the foot of the Tianqi mountain. That person had been eliminated. Huang Fulong was standing in the air and staring at them in an extremely aggressive way. Remember me, my name is Da Haichong. I am the man who will get married with Tianqi Shui, shouted Huang Fulong extremely loudly. Immediately after, he moved back to his initial position in a free and unrestrained way. What a terrifying physical strength, thought the crowd while staring at Huang Fulong. He wasn't an easy opponent to defeat. The crowd then looked at Lin Feng and then at the young man with snowy white eyebrows. He had decided to fight against Lin Feng first. I will get to defeat him now then, said the one with the snowy white eyebrows. He released a terrifying ice energy which surrounded Lin Feng's body. In the Tianqi Empire, it kept snowing throughout the year. Therefore, people who practiced snow and ice cultivation were the most numerous. Those who were extremely strong usually understood snow intent just like that young man. Besides, his agility techniques were also based on snow intent. He could move like falling snowflakes. He jumped forwards and threw himself at Lin Feng. He then turned into an illusion, His silhouette seemed to be everywhere in the air, just like the snowflakes. Nobody knew which of those illusions was the real one. Eyesore, said Lin Feng. The crowd saw Lin Feng move. His entire body turned into a sword and streaked across the sky like a meteor. He was moving at an incredible speed. The snowflakes stopped and a frightening explosion sounded in the air. They were astonished. They only saw the face of the young man with the snowy white eyebrows covered with blood which had started gushing. His snow agility techniques had been completely useless. Lin Feng had found the real one, attacked his face and made him fly away in the distance. Another one had been eliminated. The crowd was astonished. Huang Fulong and Lin Feng were both difficult to fight against. A moment before, Lin Feng had displayed a terrifying speed thanks to his wind intent. And then his extremely sharp sword intent had enabled him to defeat the opponent very easily. Lin Feng understood 3 kinds of intent: wind intent, fire intent, and sword intent. He was much stronger than a majority of people thanks to his understanding of them. People were glancing at each other with long faces. The 2 people they wanted to eliminate immediately at the beginning were quite strong. The worst thing was that they had lost face in front of Tianqi Shui. Let me try, said someone. The crowd turned around and saw someone wearing a sable Chong Pao. They had broken through to the 9th Xianqi layer. He was looking at Lin Feng in a sharp way. All right, shouted some people in unison. That person had broken through to the 9th Xianqi layer, so he would probably be able to eliminate Lin Feng. Some people didn't attack because they weren't angry with Lin Feng or Huang Fulong, they were just watching. For them, the fact that some people were getting eliminated was a great thing. The young man took off his sable Chong Pao and let it fall down in the air. A terrifying sharp chi appeared around his body. His entire body turned into a sword, an extremely dazzling sword. He is a sword cultivator, that's sword intent. The crowd was surprised and looked excited. They also looked worried though. Some people wanted Lin Feng to get eliminated. However, they were also worried because that cultivator of the 9th Xianqi layer, who understood sword intent, could also be dangerous to them later. We are both sword cultivators, but our cultivation level is completely different. I will give you a chance, you can get lost now and give up, said the young man while jumping forwards. He looked proud and aggressive. The others couldn't deal with Lin Feng, but he could. Besides, Tianqi Shui would like him if he won. You are also a sword cultivator, said Lin Feng with sharp sword lights in his eyes. They were dazzling. I am a sword cultivator indeed, said that person while jumping forwards and releasing some terrifying sharp sword chi. It seemed like there were hundreds of swords in the sky all moving towards Lin Feng, ready to lacerate him. However, Lin Feng was standing in the middle of those energy looking free and unrestrained. Your sword is polluted, it's not pure. Calling yourself a strong sword cultivator is a humiliation for sword cultivators, said Lin Feng coldly. He then released his sword intent. The ice in the sky were filled with a monumental quantity of sword energy at that moment. Rumbling sounds kept spreading in the air. Lin Feng's entire body was diffusing a sword light, and he was condensing some pure chi which turned into sword energy and surrounded his body. CRRR. CRRRR. The sword energies lacerated the atmosphere. Lin Feng had turned into a sword and streaked across the sky. Lin Feng was a sword and his sword was Lin Feng. His sword intent fused together with his body. It was an extremely pure sword, unadulterated. Lin Feng appeared at the top of the mountain after the sword light streaked across the sky. His opponent was still standing in the same place, but blood was dripping and instantly freezing. He hadn't even had the opportunity to unsheath the sword. Could he be called a sword cultivator? You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.